Chapter 788. After the birth of the Source Spirit, the land of nearly 100 mountains was called the Source Spirit Land. It was located at the border between the Nine Treasures Realm and the North Foot Realm. There was a city at the border between the Source Spirit Land and the Nine Treasures Realm called Ruashui City. This city was under the jurisdiction of the Water Beast God Clan. Outside the city, at this moment, there were more than a dozen forces watching. On the city, a man was pinned to death in the center of the city wall by a few long nails covered with water patterns. His face was full of pain. Isn't that Emo Manue of the Black Bow God Clan? How did he offend the Water Beast God Clan, to be hanged here to be tortured? It is said that it is for a guy called Longchen, who took the Source Spirit body from Shui Tianmu that day. Longchen, is he the person that the Warring States have been looking for? The Warring States and the Water Beast God Clan are like fire and water these days. It seems that there are many crowned emperors rushing here. Everyone present was discussing animatedly. Many of them were under the orders of other emperors of the two realms, and there were even crowned emperors. But now, nearly half of the emperors had given up on the Source Spirit Land. Especially the emperors of the North Foot Realm and the Nine Treasures Realm, who were watching the fire burn across the river. Most of these people had come for the other fortunes in the land of origin souls. For example, a 5-flower divine herb appeared a few days ago in the north of the Source Spirit Land. It was flowing with colorful clouds and Genesis Chi, which attracted many emperors to fight for it. A few hundred miles away from Ruashui City, Long Chen was dressed in black and wore a bamboo hat to cover his face. He looked into the distance for a long time before quickly disappearing into the horizon. Shui Tianmu captured Emo Manue. It seems that he wants the Source Spirit body in my hands. In a hidden mountain, Long Chen used the method taught by the Emperor's remnant soul to isolate himself from all detection as he looked at the Source Spirit body in his hands and muttered, "If Emo Manue can survive 100 days, I will save him. At that time, all the previous grievances will be written off. Even if the coronation fails, I will find a way to keep him alive." It had to be said. Emo Manue was very unlucky. At least from his point of view, Shui Tianmu using him to force Long Chen to show himself was an idiotic act. Before he accepted Long Chen as his master, he had wanted to kill Long Chen. With such a relationship, he did not believe that Long Chen would risk his life to appear. After all, coming to Ruashui City was tantamount to seeking death. He had begged Shui Tianmu at least a few hundred times. However, Shui Tianmu didn't believe it at all. At least, if it wasn't for Emo Manue, Long Chen wouldn't have been able to snatch away the Origin Soul and Heavenly Water Pearl. Long Chen's hands continuously streaked across the air, and one rune after another landed on the Source Soul body before him. His Source Soul body immediately emitted a dazzling light, and streams of Source energy seemed to transform into countless tiny rivers. Every river emitted a buzzing sound, as if there were giant beasts that were about to rush out. The rivers transformed into countless shadows of gods and poured into Long Chen's body. They condensed into palm-sized Tao markings several inches around him. The Tao markings floated up and down, as if they were attracting all kinds of Source energy between heaven and earth. In an instant, Long Chen's body was filled with holy light, and the brilliance was like a surging tide that washed over his corporeal body and tempered his god. The remnant soul of the Emperor nodded slightly and said, "This Source Soul body is formed from the Source energy of all living things when it was born. It is enough to stabilize your spiritual pedestal and raise it to level 8 of the martial Emperor realm." In Long Chen's divine soul, the Dragon Palace floated up and down continuously, as if it had formed a realm of its own. The dazzling light of the Dragon Palace turned into a downpour and poured down. Thunder rumbled in the downpour, and when it landed on the Dragon Palace, it instantly dissipated. The rainwater entered the Dragon Palace, and the Dragon Palace that had been floating in Long Chen's divine soul started to move for the first time. Tao markings started to condense at the foundation, and it completely merged with Long Chen's divine soul. The Tao markings undulated, and the dragon palace was rooted. An ancient and desolate aura spread out in all directions. In Long Chen's divine soul, thousands of visions rose above the dragon palace. The dragon rose from the abyss, the phoenix danced in the 9 heavens, the black tortoise prostrated. Long Chen opened his eyes, and the demonic aura in his eyes started to turn dark gold. At this moment, he felt an unprecedented solidification of the God realm. The source soul body spun in front of Long Chen, and the colorful lights on it turned into silk threads that flowed into Long Chen's body, thinning out at a speed visible to the naked eye. Outside the source soul land, in just 10 days, the water beast god race and the war kingdom had fought more than 10 times. Every time, there was a crowned martial monarch realm expert, and the scene was very grand. Mountains and rivers within 100,000 miles were overturned. Many fortunes were destroyed in a day. The various forces started to retreat from the source soul land, and they could already smell the uneasiness in the air. Zhan Lanyue donned her battle armor and stood in front of the many experts. She said coldly, 30,000 miles to the northwest, a rank 9 source beast has been born. There are 3 beast spirits, 7 flower divine herbs in its cave dwelling. We must take it down. But if we meet anyone from the water beast god race, kill them without mercy. 30,000 miles to the northwest. It was not far from where Zhan Lanyue and the others were, but it took 7 to 8 days. In these 7 to 8 days, they fought with the water beast god race non-stop. Shui Tianmu fought with Zhan Lanyue for 3 days, and no one knew the result. But on the 10th day, Shui Tianmu left with the 3 7-flower divine herbs, and a few War Kingdom cultivators were captured and hung on the city wall. When the War Kingdom cultivators were hung on the city wall, everyone knew that a great battle was unavoidable. It was impossible for this battle to end hastily. The most puzzling thing was actually Mo Manue. As the eldest son of the Mo Gong god race, Mo Manue was famous and many people recognized him. However, after so many days, not a single member of the Mo family had appeared. This was truly inconceivable. After the battle with the 7-flower divine herbs, the entire source soul land seemed to have calmed down. Some speculated that Zhan Lanyue was heavily injured and was recuperating. Others said that the War Kingdom had started to mobilize a large number of crowned martial monarchs. In a mountain range, the War Kingdom cultivators gathered. A young man appeared outside the mountain range, and walked straight into the mountain range. "Who's here? State your name." Just as Long Chen walked into the mountain range, 3 crowned martial monarchs flew into the sky and stared at Long Chen cautiously. But when the 3 of them saw that Long Chen was only a level 3 martial monarch, they frowned and dispersed their auras. One of them recognized Long Chen and said, "Quick, report to Lady Lanyue, the guest elder she is looking for is here." "Guest elder? Is this level 3 martial monarch really a guest elder? After so many days of fighting, is it because of this guy?" Chapter 789. When Long Chen entered the mountain range, he saw that the Battle Kingdom cultivators were all on high alert. When he reached the place where Zhan Lanyue was, he was surrounded by many imperial emperors. One of the imperial emperors stepped forward and frowned. He stopped a few people and said, "Lady Lanyue is severely injured now, if you touch her origin." Before he finished, Zhan Lanyue's voice could be heard from a wooden house that was protected by many people. "Let him in, I have something to discuss with him." The imperial emperor's faces were ugly, but they quickly stepped back and signaled for Long Chen to continue. Long Chen disappeared from the wooden house. The imperial emperors whispered, "A level 3 imperial emperor walking so close to Lady Lanyue. The person who came to help is Zhan Sun. Now that Lady Lanyue is severely injured, it's hard to say if she can protect him. Zhan Sun's actions these days are a little too much. Although he did it secretly, it's too sensitive now." The imperial emperors whispered and shook their heads. They did not care about Long Chen anymore. To them, Long Chen was just an ordinary level 3 Imperial Emperor. His strength was not enough for them to put him in their eyes. In the wooden house, Jean Lanniue was behind a green bird screen. Other than the silhouette of her curvaceous body, one could not see her face. I didn't expect you to still be alive. This is truly out of my expectations. Her voice was very weak, like a willow that had just shed its roots. Long Chen sat cross-legged beside the screen and smiled. I won't die so easily. At least, I won't be killed by a dead fish. But talking through the screen makes me feel like I'm facing the wall. When Jean Lanniue heard Long Chen comparing Shui Tianmu to a dead fish, she could not help but laugh. A ray of light flashed, and the screen between the two of them disappeared without a trace. Jean Lanniue's face appeared in front of Long Chen. A unique fragrance of a woman wafted over. Their eyes met. Jean Lanniue stared at Long Chen and said, "How is it? If you don't want to see, I can still cover the screen." Long Chen froze on the spot. On Jean Lanniue's fair and flawless face, there was a bloodstain that went all the way to her collarbone. The bloodstain on her snow-white skin was truly dazzling. Not only that, if one looked carefully, they would discover that under her snow-white skin, there were streaks of tricolored brilliance rising and falling one after another, as if they were about to break out of her body. A moment later, Long Chen's eyes twitched. He stood up and walked in front of Jean Lanniue and grabbed her arm. Jean Lanniue's face turned gloomy, and the aura around her increased tremendously. Countless rays of light rushed towards Long Chen, concealing one's spirit and qi, the origin of the Purple Sea, born from blood. Just as her attack was about to land, she heard Long Chen's words. Not only that. Long Chen's right hand, which was grabbing her, emitted streams of terrifying origin energy that rushed into her meridians. Rumble! A thunderous sound reverberated in Jean Lanniue's body. Her skin that was soaked in blood turned blood red in an instant. There were also countless amounts of hot air rising from her body. Puff, puff. The rays of light that were rushing towards Long Chen were instantly shattered. Jean Lanniue's aura did not decrease but increased instead. It was as if the person in front of Long Chen was not a weak girl, but an ancient giant beast. Jean Lanniue's eyes were burning like a ball of fire. It was actually blood red. She stared at Long Chen. Her mind seemed to be filled with spring thunder. She stared at Long Chen in shock. At this moment, she felt that the entire ancient sacred divine world was like a blood-red flower that was slowly unfolding in front of her. That was the opportunity to step into the Imperial Emperor realm. Streaks of blood-red flames rose up instantly. Long Chen let go of Jean Lanniue's arm and retreated quickly. His face turned red and he quickly turned his body sideways. The screen at the side separated the two of them. The flames just now actually burned off Jean Lanniue's clothes. Long Chen said awkwardly, "A few days ago, your blood-bathed god race's origin energy had already reverted to its ancestor. You should only have a 1 in 100 chance to step into the Imperial Emperor realm. Now that you have fought Shui Tianmu, you are severely injured. The origin energy did not dissipate, causing your physical body to be unable to recover. However, it also allowed your blood-bathed god race's origin energy to recover. If you go into seclusion now, you will have a 20% chance to step into the Imperial Emperor realm." Long Chen's words made Jean Lanniue's heart tremble. She had been looking for Long Chen because she wanted to repay Long Chen for helping her revert to her ancestor. However, she did not expect that Long Chen would actually give her the opportunity to step into the Imperial Emperor realm. Concealment of one's spirit, birth from the Purple Sea, birth from blood. Long Chen's short words were like the sound of the great Tao in Jean Lanniue's ears, giving her hope to step into the Imperial Emperor realm. The Imperial Emperor's remnant soul's voice rang in Long Chen's ears with a hint of mockery. This girl's perception is not low. I'm afraid that she has also sensed that Shui Tianmu's attack was not right, but she could not understand it. Now, with just a few pointers, she might be able to become an imperial emperor. However, it is still too early for her to be crowned. Even if she becomes an imperial emperor, her achievements will be limited. Why don't you take her down now and I will teach you the art of yin-yang harmony? Not only will she be able to step into the imperial emperor realm, you might be able to do the same. When the time comes, I can even try to crown the two of you together. The success rate should be extremely high. Long Chen froze on the spot when he heard that. He could not help but feel hot all over. Then, he shook his head fiercely and said, "Master, it seems like you were a playboy in your previous life. You have dabbled in all kinds of techniques. However, she and I are just ordinary friends. How can we practice the dual cultivation technique? So what if you are friends? If you are a woman, just take her down and use force. Even if she is unwilling, so what? You can keep her by your side for more than 10 years. If not, then 100 years. If not, then 1,000 years. She will definitely be loyal to you." For a moment Long Chen was speechless. The corner of his mouth twitched and he asked with his divine sense, "How many women did Master have when he was alive? Did you really succeed with this method?" "I have not counted the number of women. However, there should be around 10,000 years. Now they should still be alive. They can be considered as your master's wives. When the time comes, you might be able to meet them." Long Chen was completely speechless at this moment. He did not know whether to laugh or cry when he thought of the countless number of wives he had. He quickly changed the topic and said, "Now, let's think of a way to save Emmanuel and the others. It is also a good opportunity to test my combat strength." As his divine sense landed, Long Chen also opened his mouth and said to Jean Lanue, "You are in seclusion now. I hope that you can let me lead the people of the Battle Kingdom." Chapter 790. Jean Lanue's sword. Long Chen seemed to have a well-thought-out plan. After pondering for a moment, he nodded and chose to go into seclusion. Before he went into seclusion, Jean Lanue's voice could be heard from the wooden house, reaching the ears of everyone from the Battle Kingdom who followed her. In an instant, the entire mountain was filled with exclamations. Every great emperor had a strange expression on their face. They looked at each other in shock. "What? She wants us to listen to Long Chen's orders. Anyone who disobeys will be killed. Who is Long Chen? Why have I never heard of his name before? Third-level Great Emperor? Are you kidding me? What can a third-level Great Emperor bring us to do?" When Long Chen walked out of the house, he was stopped by more than 10 crowned Great Emperors from all directions. These people were all late Great Emperors who were crowned Great Emperors. They were extremely strong, and there were at least 2 Sea of Wheel behind them. The Sea of Wheel was the manifestation of a Great Emperor's potential. The more Sea of Wheel one had, the easier it would be for them to become Great Emperors in the future. "You are Long Chen? What did you say to Lady Lanue? Why would she give you the command?" The person who spoke was a young man. Before he could finish his sentence, a middle-aged man reached out and stopped him. This person stared at Long Chen and took a deep breath. His tone was much better as he said, "Although you are a guest elder personally selected by Lady Lanue, we still hope that you can leave this place as soon as possible. We are more than enough to deal with the Soul Source land." Everyone's eyes were filled with disdain, and many of them were furious. None of them were weak. They were all martial emperors under Imperial Emperor Zhan Kuang. But now they had to listen to a third-level martial emperor. It was an insult to them. Moreover, Long Chen was not from the Zhan clan and was not crowned by Zhan Tianquang. Although this person spoke politely, his meaning was clear. They did not dare to disobey Jean Lanue's orders, but they wanted Long Chen to back off. From the moment this order was given, none of them wanted to obey. Long Chen's expression didn't change as he watched more and more great emperors gather around him. He was already prepared for such a scene. After pondering for a moment, he said to everyone in a deep voice, "In the last battle, the water beast gods won a complete victory. Many of your companions in the Warring States Kingdom were captured, right? Long Chen's voice had just sounded when the surrounding people were startled. Soon after, their anger soared to the heavens. Since the last battle between Lan Yu and Shui Tianmu, many people from the Warring States Kingdom were captured. These people were now no different from Mo Manyu, all of them hung on the city walls. It was precisely because of this action that the people of the Warring States Kingdom were enraged, and war was about to break out. Long Chen's words were no different from adding oil to the fire. Brat, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. You're just a third-level spirit emperor. You should know your limits. The leader of the group couldn't help but reprimand him. The surrounding people also stepped forward, their faces full of disdain. Long Chen shook his head and said, "Are you all going to defy Lady Lan Yu's orders and betray the Warring States Kingdom?" Everyone's expression changed and they stopped in their tracks. However, everyone's gaze towards Long Chen became even more gloomy. The leader of the group, a middle-aged man, said coldly, "Brat, be careful of your words. We've all been crowned as Imperial Emperor Zhan Kuang's subordinate. We won't betray him. If you insist on taking orders, we'll listen. However, if you lose your life, don't blame us." The middle-aged man's cultivation was at the peak of the Emperor realm. He had 3 seas of reincarnation behind him. When the people behind him heard this, they couldn't be bothered to argue with Long Chen. They just thought that Long Chen was an arrogant and ignorant person. Long Chen was indifferent to the disdainful gazes of the crowd. He looked at the crowd and said, "Tomorrow, pick 20 late-stage spirit emperors and follow me to Ruoshui City to rescue people." Everyone looked at each other. The middle-aged man couldn't help but twitch his eyes and said, "How do you plan to rescue people? Shui Tianmu's battle strength can't even defeat Lady Lan Yu. The Warring States Kingdom's army will take at least 10 days to arrive here. What can you do with 20 people?" Long Chen didn't explain. He just said to the crowd, "Since you're all here today, and you're all crowned, follow me to Ruoshui City tomorrow." After that, Long Chen turned around and left, leaving the Emperor Realm cultivators looking at each other. After a while, many of them asked, "What is Lady Lan Yu thinking? Why did she go into seclusion and leave us in the hands of such a person? Are we really going to listen to him? If we really go to Ruoshui City tomorrow, a few more people will die." The middle-aged man raised his arm and waved it down. When the crowd quieted down, he said, "Since this person doesn't know when to back down, we can only play along with him. When the time comes, we'll just have to save our own lives." Although the crowd was unhappy, they could only nod in agreement. After all, they were crowned by Zhan Tiankuang. Now that Zhan Lanyue ordered them to do so, they wouldn't dare to disobey. The sky gradually darkened. Long Chen left the place where the Warring States Kingdom cultivators were and landed in a valley a few thousand meters away. In front of him, there was an 8th-order demonic beast with half of its body destroyed and its soul completely dissipated. It couldn't be more dead. Long Chen stood in front of the beast. The Sovereign Lord's soul murmured, "Now that the Dragon Palace has completely merged with your soul, the strength of your body has increased by several times. With the strength of an 8th-order Spirit Emperor, you're no weaker than some great perfection divine race cultivators. However, it's still unknown whether you can win against Shui Tianmu or Zhan Lanyue. Both of them are great perfection divine emperors. If they're lucky enough, they'll have the chance to step into the Imperial Emperor realm. Plus, they've already been crowned and opened their Sea of Reincarnation." The Sovereign Lord Soul's words made Long Chen clench his fist. He replied, "Even if he's only an 8th-order Spirit Emperor, if I also open my Sea of Reincarnation, Shui Tianmu might be able to win." After that, Long Chen once again ran towards the mountain range. It wasn't until the next morning that he returned to where Zhan Lanyue and the others were. He had killed quite a number of Genesis beasts that night, including a grade 9 Genesis beast. When the late divine emperors who had been crowned saw Long Chen coming, their eyes were filled with provocation. Long Chen looked at everyone's appearance and did not say much. He only said indifferently, "Let's go. Head to Ruoshui City." Chapter 791. On the city wall of Ruoshui City. Fresh blood poured down like rain, staining the greenish-brown stones red. Following the bloodstains, one could see more than 10 people hanging on the city wall with their chests pierced through by iron spears. They were all in the great emperor realm, and as long as their god source was not destroyed, their flesh and blood could be regenerated. However, after so many days of being hacked into pieces, they had suffered all kinds of torture. A few of the great emperor realm experts who followed Zhang Lanyue couldn't stand the torture and killed themselves. On the other hand, Mo Manwë gritted his teeth and persevered for so many days. These great emperor realm experts gave him hope of leaving this place. The Mo Gong clan had obviously given up on him and was unwilling to fight with the Water Beast clan. But the great emperor realm experts wouldn't take this lying down. As long as they saved this group of people, he would have a chance to be saved. The sun was high in the sky. When Long Chen and the others appeared in front of Ruoshui City, Mo Manwë was stunned. Although he expected the great emperor realm experts to come, he didn't expect Long Chen to lead the team and only 20 people. The 20 people stood in front of the city without any concealment. In less than 10 breaths of time, the city was filled with people and the leader was Shui Tianmu. Shui Tianmu stood on the city wall. His eyes immediately fell on Long Chen. Soon after, the coldness in his eyes intensified. He stared at Long Chen and glanced at the great emperor realm experts behind Long Chen. He sneered, "I didn't expect you to dare to come here. Do you think the great emperor realm experts can protect you?" The great emperor realm experts' faces turned purple and they snorted coldly. Only Long Chen took a step forward and said, "I'm here to save people. I don't need others to protect me." Save people? Many members of the Water Beast clan behind Shui Tianmu had strange expressions on their faces when they heard this. Save people? You? A great perfection great emperor realm expert sneered. A great perfection great emperor realm expert dares to speak so arrogantly. What a joke. Hurry up and hand over the heavenly water pearl, or you'll be the next one to be hung on the city wall. Why are you still talking nonsense with him? Since he's courting death, let's just take him down. The Water Beast God clan's members laughed maniacally. A 7th-level Great Emperor leaped down from the sky and a 100-meter-long spear shot towards Long Chen. If it wasn't for the fact that he was wary of the 20 Great Emperors behind Long Chen, he would have already charged forward. The long spear was like a dragon. The multicolored light surrounding the spear technique spiraled endlessly, as if it wanted to directly mince Long Chen into pieces. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the people behind Long Chen all sneered and took a few steps back. Someone even whispered, "Wasn't he arrogant? Now that he's dead, he can't blame us." Bang! As soon as this person's voice fell, a rumbling sound was heard, causing the air in all directions to tremble. Everyone turned to look at the source of the sound, only to see Long Chen shatter the 1,000-feet-long spear with a single blow. A fist shadow tore through the air like a golden flame. Shrill screams immediately rang out, and everyone's gazes turned to look at the person under the raging flames. This person was the one who had just attacked Long Chen. Now, more than half of his body had been destroyed. Isn't this guy a 3rd-level Great Emperor? How could he shatter a 7th-level Great Emperor's attack with a single punch? And his body was almost destroyed. This kid has some strength. It seems that the survivors who participated in the Soul Source battle were right. This person has a special technique to hide his strength. So what? Do you really think that he can save these people from Shui Tianmu? He's just a brute. The 20 great emperors of the Sengoku clan glanced at Long Chen. Although they were slightly shocked, they still felt that he was courting death today. Shui Tianmu was able to injure Zhang Langyue. His cultivation was clearly not weak. Even if Long Chen was hiding his strength, it was impossible for him to defeat Shui Tianmu. At least, Long Chen had not been crowned yet. Shui Tianmu frowned slightly. Water ripples appeared on his right hand. With a flick of his finger, all the flames on this person's body were covered. He stared at Long Chen and said lightly, "I didn't expect you to have completely digested the soul source body in such a short time. Your cultivation has improved so much." Shui Tianmu paused and said, "I want to see how you can save these people from my hands today. The 20 people behind you are not enough." His voice was very playful and even a little arrogant. In his eyes, Long Chen was already a dead man. But he liked the feeling of playing with him, so he was not in a hurry. Long Chen looked at the 20 people behind him, shook his head and said, "20 people are enough. At least they can take these people away from here. But today, I want to exchange a few moves with you." After that, everyone was in an uproar. Long Chen actually wanted to fight with Shui Tianmu. Even the 20-odd people behind Long Chen were stunned. Although they had already made preparations to let Long Chen do as he pleased, they were still unable to do anything. But they never thought that Long Chen would seek death and fight with Shui Tianmu. Zhang Langyue was a great perfection martial emperor and had 4 wheels in her sea of reincarnation during her coronation. Even she had lost to Shui Tianmu. So what if Long Chen, who had yet to be crowned, had reached the peak of the emperor realm? How could he be a match for Shui Tianmu? The people behind Shui Tianmu looked at each other and then burst into laughter. "Did you hear that? This guy wants to challenge young Master Shui Tianmu. Hiding his cultivation? So what if you are a great perfection martial emperor? You don't need young Master Shui Tianmu to fight with you. You overestimate yourself. You think you can't be killed with 20 people from the Battle Kingdom? What a joke." Hearing the mocking laughter, Shui Tianmu's face became even more playful. He waved his hand slightly and the people around him quieted down. Then he looked at Long Chen and said, "Interesting. So what if I let you have 3 moves? Let's see what you can do today." Long Chen transmitted his message to the 20 people behind him, making them speechless and treating it as a joke. But Long Chen had already walked forward and arrived at the city wall. The great emperor's remnant soul's voice rang in Long Chen's ears. "This guy's talent is not bad. In fact, he has 6 sea of reincarnation and he hid 2 with this strength. Defeating Zhang Langyue is nothing. If you want to defeat him, it's best to wait until after your coronation." Chapter 792. Long Chen looked at Shui Tianmu with a serious expression. Shui Tianmu was able to defeat Zhang Langyue. Although Long Chen had reached the 8th level of the martial emperor realm, he was still a far cry from Shui Tianmu. Most importantly, Long Chen had not been crowned and had not opened his sea of reincarnation. As long as he opened his sea of reincarnation, Long Chen was confident that he could fight against Shui Tianmu. But that day was definitely not today. Today, he was going to save Mo Manue and the people from the Warring States Kingdom. Long Chen stood below the city wall. Shui Tianmu did not even walk down the wall. He just leaped up and stood on top of the wall. He looked down at Long Chen and said, "I'll give you 3 chances to attack. After 3 moves, I'll destroy your body and take your soul and brand it on the wall." The people from the Water Beast clan sneered. Everyone could see that Shui Tianmu wanted to humiliate Long Chen with these 3 moves. Otherwise, he could easily take down Long Chen. Long Chen turned a blind eye to everyone's stares. He leaped 100 meters and threw a punch at Shui Tianmu. Seeing this, Shui Tianmu couldn't help but snort in disdain. He threw a punch straight at him. The image of a divine dragon rose and fell on Long Chen's right arm. It looked like a huge dragon was circling around his arm. The multicolored light extended endlessly. Rumble. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the two of them threw a punch at each other. The multicolored light dispersed in all directions from the place where the two fists collided, and a series of rumbling sounds could be heard incessantly. Ka ka ka. When the rays of light dissipated, everyone looked at the city wall. Long Chen and Shui Tianmu's fists were still colliding. However, the city wall under their feet began to crack at a speed visible to the naked eye. The inscriptions on the city wall flashed and stopped the cracks. Everyone's expression changed. No one expected Long Chen's punch to be so powerful. Shui Tianmu also frowned slightly. His feet were almost stuck in the huge rocks of the city wall. The warring statespeople also looked at each other and secretly thought that Long Chen really had some strength. For a person who had yet to be crowned to have such combat strength, it was still not bad. You do have some strength, but that's all there is to it. Shui Tianmu snorted and swung his fist, trying to push Long Chen back. Long Chen sneered. His whole body emitted an oppressive aura. In an instant, his aura reached its peak. Fist shadows filled the sky as if tens of thousands of dragon shadows were rushing out from the void. Their cries were incessant like the roar of the Great Path, drawing on the original fate of the Great Path. Rumble! On the city wall, the Water Beast God clan members' expressions changed, and they shot up into the sky. Shui Tianmu was the first to bear the brunt of the fist shadows. His eyes had completely changed color at this moment. A water curtain instantly turned into a tsunami that soared into the 9 heavens. 2 divine rivers flowed downwards, and there seemed to be deities manifesting above them. This time, everyone was completely stunned. No one thought that the battle between Long Chen and Shui Tianmu could be so powerful. The situation that should have been one-sided did not happen. This made the warring statespeople for the first time start to seriously wait for Long Chen's voice transmission before he attacked. The divine rivers and the dragon shadows converged. A dazzling brilliance fell from the sky like flowing rainbows. It was extremely beautiful. The city under Shui Tianmu's feet was turned into powder. He looked at Long Chen with a gloomy look, and he was no longer as calm as he had been when he punched Long Chen. Your Excellency, do you still want to give me 3 moves? I'm afraid that if I continue, your city will be destroyed. Long Chen stared at Shui Tianmu and said in a deep voice. Shui Tianmu's right hand moved in the air, and 2 divine rivers appeared from the left and right. It was extremely terrifying. The divine rivers surged. Shui Tianmu grabbed the air and turned into 2 spears. The tip of the spears was where Long Chen was. He snorted and said, I wanted to play with you. Now it seems that you'd better die peacefully. The 2 spears broke through the air, and wherever they passed, a tsunami rose into the sky. Long Chen saw this and his face was full of seriousness. The Emperor's remnant soul in his mind said bluntly, Do it. Save him. If you can be crowned, then come back and fight with this person. Otherwise, even if you win today, I'm afraid that no one here will be able to survive. Long Chen nodded. Although his heart was full of fighting spirit, he knew that the Emperor's remnant soul was not lying. Shui Tianmu's strength was really terrifying. Today's test was enough. Long Chen suddenly waved his right hand when he saw the 2 spears formed by the divine river flying toward him. The origin energy on them revealed a terrifying aura. The heavenly water pearl appeared in front of Long Chen and kept spinning. The moment the heavenly water pearl appeared, Long Chen's right hand turned into a phantom and kept falling in the air. Inscriptions of water quickly fell into the heavenly water pearl. The heavenly water pearl kept spinning, and streaks of water rushed into the sky. A tsunami of tens of thousands of feet rushed past. Save him! Long Chen roared, and the warring statespeople who had already descended behind him suddenly quivered, and immediately broke through the air and rushed towards the city wall. On the other side, Shui Tianmu and the other Water Beast clan people's faces changed drastically. They were all stunned. Heavenly Water Pearl, you are not a member of the Water Beast clan. How can you use the Heavenly Water Pearl? The heavenly water pearl's power has been pushed to the extreme. If this continues, the entire Roi Shui city will be destroyed. The heavenly water pearl has been sealed by my clan. Without the origin of the water beast clan, it can't be opened. How can this person use it? Exclamations of surprise were incessant. The tsunami in the sky poured down. Even Shui Tianmu's attack was drowned in it. His face was already ashen. The pouring tsunami connected with the sky, and in the blink of an eye, it had fallen on the city. Puff, puff, puff. The water beast clan people rushed to the sky one by one, trying to block the heavenly water pearl's power outside the city, but each of them kept vomiting blood. The power of the heavenly water pearl was even stronger than when it captured the origin spirit. Shui Tianmu's body was like a tide of water, a ray of brilliance almost condensed. His whole body rushed to the sky, and the mighty power of the heavenly water pearl was slightly reduced. On the other side, all the people on the city wall had been taken away by the Warring States Kingdom people. Each of them was not weak, and in the blink of an eye, they disappeared in front of everyone. The voice of the Emperor Lord's remnant soul suddenly appeared, and said to Long Qin, "Don't panic, destroy the 2 rank 9 beast souls behind the city wall." Long Qin raised his eyebrows and his eyes flashed. Just now, he saw that the inscription Array I in the northwest of the city wall had locked up 2 rank 9 monster beast souls. Long Qin's whole body swept across the sky. His body turned and directly blasted a hole in the inscription Array I. The 2 beast souls roared, but they were extremely weak. 2 7-flower divine herbs. Long Qin's face was full of excitement. Long Qin took the 7-flower divine herbs and flew away. Shui Tianmu in the distance noticed it, but the next moment he was so angry that he vomited blood. Chapter 793. Ruoshui City was flooded and the 7-flower godly herb was taken away. Long Qin's fame was unparalleled in the land of source souls. When they returned to Zhan Lanyue's stronghold, the 20 people who followed Long Qin looked at each other awkwardly. Before they left, they even thought of letting Long Qin die in Ruoshui City. But now, with Long Qin's help, they managed to save everyone from the Battle Kingdom from the city wall. These people had a good relationship with them, and some of them were as close as brothers. A few of them looked at each other and walked towards Long Qin. Especially those who were saved from the city wall, they immediately bowed to him. "Thank you for saving us today. If you need our help in the future, we will do our best." The leader bowed and shouted. After so many days of torture, they almost broke down mentally. Long Qin's help was equivalent to giving them a new lease of life. "Brother Long Qin, we were stupid for the past 2 days. We are all in the Battle Kingdom. If you need our help, just say it." The 20 people's faces were a little green and red. They felt guilty when they thought of their attitude towards Long Qin 2 days ago. Long Qin waved his hand, indicating that they did not need to be so polite. He smiled and said, "I did gain something from this trip. Brothers, you don't have to be so polite. Miss Lanyue is in seclusion and can't move. Shui Tianmu will definitely take revenge. It's better to be careful." Everyone nodded their heads solemnly, deeply agreeing with him. Now that the water beast god race and the Battle Kingdom were like fire and water, they had to be careful. "We will go and contact the Battle Kingdom and ask them to hurry over," the leader said. Although they knew that Long Qin had 2 7-flower godly herbs, they did not mention it. In their opinion, the 2 godly herbs should belong to Long Qin. If word got out, it would cause unnecessary trouble for Long Qin. Long Qin was quite satisfied with the change in attitude of the people. He nodded and signaled them to get back to work. He did not interfere with what these people were going to do next. The reason why he asked Zhan Lanyue for the management rights was to save the people on the city wall. Of course, this included Mo Manue. Mo Manue followed Long Qin and left the stronghold. Mo Manue couldn't understand. At this moment, Shui Tianmu and the Shui Shou clan's people must have gone crazy, so the stronghold was the safest place. However, he did not ask Long Chen for his opinion. After all, it was Long Chen who had saved him from the city wall. The two of them traveled for an entire day and night, neither sleeping nor resting. After going deep into the forest, Long Chen opened up a cave that was more than 10 meters wide. Long Chen's actions made Emmanuel even more suspicious. She didn't know why Long Chen was being so careful. Along the way, they had avoided almost all human habitation, so there was no need to open up a cave in the belly of the mountain. While Emmanuel was puzzled, Long Chen finally spoke. He looked at Emmanuel and said in a deep voice, "You and I know each other. You wanted to kill me and many of my companions died in your hands. Whatever you've been through these past few days, regardless of whether it's out of your own conscience, it's all because of me. If you don't die today, all our grievances will be written off." When Emmanuel heard Long Chen's words, she subconsciously took a few steps back and distanced herself from him. The muscles on her face stiffened as she said in a deep voice, "You can say whatever you want. As long as you don't kill me, I'll agree to everything." Emmanuel's heart was filled with uneasiness. He didn't want to die. Even if he had to bow and scrape in front of Long Chen, he didn't want to die an unnatural death. He was afraid of death, and was even more afraid of dying in the land of the Source Spirit in front of the Mo clan. "I want to help you to be crowned, but it's still unknown whether it will succeed or not," Long Chen replied. The moment he said that, Emmanuel's entire body froze. Immediately, the gloominess on her face disappeared and was replaced by an unprecedented look of shock. She lost her voice and said, "You said you want to crown me? You're not an emperor, how can you crown me?" Long Chen didn't have the intention to explain and said in a deep voice, "I've never crowned anyone before. I don't know if this will be a misfortune or good fortune for you." Emmanuel looked at Long Chen's solemn expression and knew that he wasn't lying. He really could crown him. Emmanuel's body suddenly trembled. He panted heavily and his eyes were even a little red as he said, "Crown, you can really crown me?" Although Emmanuel was afraid of death, he wanted to be crowned more. Emperor Mo Gong was his father. His father had crowned him 3 times, but all of them ended in failure. Now that he was trapped in the land of the Source Spirit and almost died, no one from the Mo clan appeared. Outsiders couldn't understand the bitterness of it. Long Chen looked at Emmanuel and frowned. He replied again, "I can indeed try to crown you, but it's not foolproof. There are many dangers in it." "I agree. If you really have the power to crown me, it's worth the risk." Emmanuel stared at Long Chen. Long Chen shook his head and laughed. It seemed like Emmanuel wasn't only afraid of death, he was even more afraid of being looked down upon by others, especially his father and clansmen. The Emperor's remnant soul seemed to be a little impatient as he said to Long Chen, "Since he has already acknowledged you as his master, what's the point of saying so much to him? An Emperor realm cultivator who can't even be considered as part of the Earth Source God race. Even if he dies under my coronation, it's his honor." Long Chen smiled bitterly and nodded. He couldn't help but wonder what Emmanuel's expression would be if he knew that the person who crowned him was the Emperor of Ancient Saint. Emperor of Ancient Saint. According to the coronation iron rules of the Ancient Saint God world, only God Emperors could be crowned by him. They were people who could make the entire Ancient Saint God world tremble with a stomp of their feet. Give him a portion of the 7-flower godly herb and teach him a breathing technique. Let him quickly recover to his peak state. I will also try to change the coronation rules for him." The Emperor's remnant soul said to Long Chen. The Emperor's remnant soul didn't care about Emmanuel's life. Instead, he wanted to prepare for Long Chen's coronation. For the next 3 days, Emmanuel didn't sleep or rest. Under Long Chen's guidance, his cultivation level rapidly recovered to the great circle of the Emperor realm. The side effects of forcefully consuming the godly herb also disappeared. The breathing technique that Long Chen taught him made him look like a god. Now, he looked at Long Chen with reverence. In his heart, he even treated Long Chen as a reclusive or wandering Emperor Realm cultivator. Even if an Emperor Realm cultivator lost his cultivation, he still had the power to be crowned. Long Chen's battle strength was extraordinary. If he could really be crowned, there could only be one reason. He was once an Emperor Realm cultivator. Long Chen naturally sensed Manua's thoughts, but he didn't point it out. Chapter 794. Ruoshui City. Shui Tianmu was in the main hall and the people around him were all silent. He never thought that Long Chen would be able to discover the 7-flower divine herb in the array core before he left. Now, he had to spit out the blood he was holding in his heart. Originally, he could attempt to break through to the Imperial Emperor realm after he obtained the Origin Soul, but Long Chen took away his Origin Soul. Then, he fought Zhan Lanyue with Sengoku and lost 3 7-flower divine herbs. Although the 7-flower divine herb was not as effective as the Origin Soul, it was still possible for him to break through to the Imperial Emperor realm. However, 2 of the 3 7-flower divine herbs were not ripe yet and he had to use the array core in the city to nourish them. Now it was taken away by Long Chen. Young Master Tianmu, there is only 1 7-flower divine herb left. Can we find another herb to replace it? An old man asked timidly. Shui Tianmu's eyes flashed coldly and he said coldly, "If any divine herb can help me become an imperial emperor, why would I come to the land of Origin Soul? That 7-flower divine herb is born from the Origin Soul and its grade is not bad. That is why it can replace the body of a vengeful spirit. Where else can we find more divine herbs above the 7-flower divine herb in the land of Origin Soul?" Everyone could see the anger in Shui Tianmu's eyes and no one dared to provoke him. Many of them were even more uneasy. The reason why they followed Shui Tianmu, and even ignored the orders of the Aqua Beast God clan to fight against the Sengoku Empire, was so that Shui Tianmu could ascend to the throne. As long as Shui Tianmu could become an imperial emperor, he would have done more good than wrong. If he did not become an imperial emperor and provoked Sengoku and the water beast celestial race, the consequences would be unimaginable. At least, other than Shui Tianmu, no one else would be able to keep their lives. It has been 5 days. Have you found where Zhan Lanyue and the others are? Even if I have to kill Zhan Lanyue, I will take back the divine herb and kill Long Chen. Shui Tianmu's face was contorted in anger. Everyone looked at each other but no one dared to answer. After a while, the old man who was the leader spoke on behalf of everyone. "We have found where Zhan Lanyue and the others are, but Zhan Sun and the others have led 3,000 men to the land of Origin Soul." Crack crack. The water vapor around Shui Tianmu's body was like a knife, cutting the walls in all directions. Zhan Sun was one of the 9 great emperors under Zhan Tianquang. His cultivation base had long reached the great circle of the emperor realm. Shui Tianmu might be a great perfection emperor, but there was no way he could win against such an old general. This difference was like the difference between him and the group of elders beneath him. They were all great emperors, but the number of Sea of Reincarnation and the origin of the god race determined their battle prowess. Among all the people present, the most they had was 2 Sea of Reincarnation, which meant that even if they worked together, they wouldn't be able to defeat Shui Tianmu. Since Zhan Sun was able to become one of the 9 great emperors of the Warring States period, he had at least 3 Seas of Reincarnation. Moreover, he had already reached the great circle of the Emperor realm. His origin energy was probably several times denser than Shui Tianmu's. If everyone's cultivation was compared to a lake, the coronation was like throwing a sea-stabilizing divine needle into the lake. Not only could the needle overturn the clouds and rain, it could also make the entire lake impregnable. Without the needle, no matter how vast the lake was, it would never be able to transform into an ocean. It would just be a pool of stagnant water. If the lake water of an ordinary person was real lake water, then the lake of a genius like Shui Tianmu was made of refined iron. Although they were all of the same size, they had the power to destroy everything. Zhan Sun's cultivation base might be slightly weaker than Shui Tianmu's, but his lake was probably several times larger than Shui Tianmu's. The result of a fight between the two was obvious. At the very least, the current Shui Tianmu wouldn't dare to say that he could defeat Zhan Sun. Shui Tianmu raised an eyebrow in anger. He said, I remember that when I first came here, I heard that someone in the Nine Treasures realm was willing to pay a high price for Long Chen's life. That person seems to be Zhan Sun? Everyone was stunned. During this time, they have been busy fighting against the people of the Warring States Kingdom and have already forgotten about this matter. 2 or 3 people present had heard about Zhan Sun's matter. The leader replied, Zhan Sun, on the other hand, is under the command of nearly 10 celestial emperors participating in the Origin Soul contest. According to the Darknet, he is willing to use Zhan Tianquang's coronation to buy Long Chen's life, as well as more than 10 pentadivine herbs and various divine abilities. Zhan Sun once saved Zhan Tianquang's life. Zhan Tianquang promised him 3 unconditionally. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people trying to take Long Chen's life in this Soul Source contest. Shui Tianmu's eyes narrowed when he heard this. A cold light flashed in his eyes. A moment later, he raised his hand and called the old man in front of him. He said in a low voice, Send a message to Zhan Sun through the Darknet. Tell him to tell me where Long Chen is. I will personally kill this person for him and withdraw from the Soul Source contest to apologize to the Warring States Kingdom. The old man nodded his head in agreement. However, he still didn't believe it. He asked doubtfully, Is Zhan Sun still willing to help my water beast god race? He isn't willing to help my water beast god race, but he is willing to help me get rid of Long Chen. On the other side, in front of Long Chen, Mo Manuel's entire body was filled with terrifying runes. These runes were like countless rays of golden light surging towards the top of his head. When Mo Manuel saw this, she couldn't help but get excited. She said, I finally have a chance. The power of my god realm and god altar has already started to form the Sea of Reincarnation. Once the Sea of Reincarnation is formed, I will be crowned as an imperial emperor. As long as my fortune is right, I might be able to become an imperial emperor. Mo Manuel looked at Long Chen excitedly. However, she suddenly stopped talking and quickly quietened down. Long Chen's hands seemed to have some kind of Tao rhythm. They landed 3 inches above her head continuously. Every time they moved, Mo Manuel's cultivation would solidify a little. During these few days, Mo Manuel became more and more respectful towards Long Chen. Ever since Long Chen started to crown her, her entire temperament had undergone an earth-shaking change. Mo Manuel didn't even dare to look at Long Chen's eyes. When she tried to look at Long Chen, her soul was almost set ablaze. At this moment, Long Chen handed over the control of his body to the remnant soul of the Imperial Emperor. However, when he saw that the coronation was finally going to be successful, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. During these few days, the remnant soul of the Imperial Emperor had reduced the Tao runes 37 times. Every time, Mo Manuel almost lost her life. Mo Manuel probably didn't know that her life had already changed so many times in the hands of the remnant soul of the Imperial Emperor. Mo Manuel was about to be crowned successfully. Chapter 795. One by one, figures set off from Zhan Lanue's stronghold and flew in all directions. They were ordered by Zhan Sun to search for Long Chen. When a black glow came from a mountain in the distance, 2 of them looked at each other and left after leaving a mark. If these people were here for a few more hours, they would have found out that this black glow was one of the thousands of divine lights emitted by Mo Manuel's coronation. Everyone from the Battle Kingdom stopped looking for Long Chen. Many people from the Warring States period felt uneasy. A few days ago, Long Chen had just helped them save their brothers, and now Zhan Sun was going to attack Long Chen. What should we do? Long Chen brought us to save our brothers and vented our anger. I'm afraid he's in trouble now. Zhan Sun's son was extremely arrogant. He died because of Long Chen and was killed by Miss Zhan Lanyue. Now Zhan Sun has placed all his hatred on Long Chen. Miss Lanyue is in seclusion, and Zhan Sun's status and strength are all in this place. We can't get involved in this mess. A few of them whispered to each other and shook their heads in the end. Facing Zhan Sun, even if they wanted to help Long Chen, they were powerless. What surprised them was that Zhan Sun did not leave the stronghold in the next few days. It was as if he did not make any moves after knowing Long Chen's whereabouts. On the other side, inside the mountain, Emo Manue knelt in front of Long Chen, and her eyes were filled with gratitude. Behind him were 3 illusory images of the Wheel Sea. Emo Manue, her father had crowned her thrice, but it ended in failure. She did not expect that she would be crowned by an Emperor Realm cultivator today. Of course, in her heart, Long Chen must have fallen to the Emperor Realm for some reason. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to be crowned. Long Chen gestured for Emo Manue to stand up. Looking at her eyes that were filled with gratitude, Long Chen couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. Do you know how many times you almost stepped into the gates of hell these days? Emo Manue's eyes were filled with determination. Without even raising her head, she said, I don't need to know how many times I have stepped into the gates of hell. I only know that now that I have succeeded in my coronation, the entire Emo Gong clan will see hope in my future. Seeing how confident Emo Manue was, Long Chen said, Let's go, the outermost restriction here has been stepped on by someone. I'm going to go into seclusion, protect me. Emo Manue nodded heavily and said in a deep voice, Now that I am in the great circle of the martial Emperor realm and have successfully been crowned, as long as I am far enough away, I can even stop Shui Tianmu for 10 days. Emo Manue's words were filled with confidence, and Long Chen did not think that she was boasting. The Emo Gong clan had a unique way of attacking and was almost invincible against those of the same cultivation level. Even though Shui Tianmu's battle prowess was extraordinary, Emo Manue had absolute confidence that she could stop him from attacking from a good position. After Long Chen agreed, he smiled faintly and said, During this coronation, you almost lost your life 173 times, but I managed to pull you back. Emo Manue's legs trembled and she almost fell to the ground. Although she was filled with confidence, she did not feel that the coronation this time was so terrifying. If Long Chen did not tell her the exact number, she would not dare to believe it. Of course, the one who saved Emo Manue was not Long Chen, but the remnant soul of the Emperor. Long Chen even saw the remnant soul of the Emperor carving Dao Law on his soul and then erasing it in order to figure out how to crown him. A centipede dies but never falls down. Long Chen really understood this saying. As the person who was crowned, Emo Manue did not know what the remnant soul of the Emperor did. Long Chen did not have the intention to point it out. Since Emo Manue survived, it was fate that allowed her to do so. Although the remnant soul of the Emperor saved him this time, he really did not care about his life. Long Chen broke the restriction and flew into the sky again. Emo Manue was in a daze for a while before she shook her head and thought, He must be lying to me. Although the coronation might fail, I have never heard of anyone dying. Soon after, he followed Long Chen and left. It took them 3 days to find an ideal place to stop. This was a mountain range that spanned 30,000 miles. The mountain range was rugged with rocks and was high in the north and low in the south. In the northeast, there was a mountain peak that reached 10,000 meters in the sky. Standing on the peak of the northeast mountain, one could almost see the entire mountain range. Emo Manue stood on the peak with a bow in her hand. She was in high spirit. She was in a good mood. She looked up and saw that Long Chen was 20,000 meters away from her. It was an extremely low-lying valley. Inside the valley, there were inscriptions of array formations everywhere. Many divine lights were shining like rainbows. The remnant soul of the Emperor said to Long Chen, "Pass on another visualization technique to her. Otherwise, if she is interrupted and her life is in danger, the gains will not make up for the losses." Long Chen nodded and agreed. Ever since Emmanuel was crowned, Long Chen no longer had any enmity towards him. All the things that happened in the past could be considered as offsetting. The remnant soul of the Emperor imprinted the visualization technique into Long Chen's soul. Long Chen moved in front of Emmanuel and said, "Today, I will pass on a visualization technique to you. After I go into seclusion, anyone who steps within 30,000 miles will be killed." No one, Emmanuel heard this and nodded. Then, she suddenly reacted and said, "You just said visualization technique? You really have a visualization technique that can be passed on." Long Chen did not explain and directly imprinted a divine beast's soul into Emmanuel's sea of consciousness. Emmanuel froze on the spot and her eyes started to become blank. In her mind, there was a golden-winged rock soaring. Golden light flowed on its wings like countless arrows. The countless wings gave off a terrifying sound of breaking through the air. The countless wings turned into arrows and flew in all directions. Wherever they passed, the sun would fall and the stars would collapse. The bow in Emmanuel's hand started to tremble uncontrollably. Pucci. Emmanuel actually spat out a mouthful of blood. She looked at Long Chen with a bitter smile and said, "My lord, I'm afraid I can't take this visualization technique." His tone was unprecedentedly respectful. He had completely submitted to Long Chen. This rock was a god-race totem born from chaos. It was not something that he could visualize. If he were to look at it for another 2 to 3 breaths, his divine residence would be shattered. Long Chen frowned and asked the remnant soul of the Emperor in his mind, "What visualization technique did you give him? Is it so terrifying?" The remnant soul of the Emperor snorted and said, "It's just a beast. You just asked him to visualize one of its wings. What a good-for-nothing. If he were to visualize the Azura Void God Totem, he would probably go crazy and die." Chapter 796. After explaining the limitations of Emmanuel's visualization technique, Long Chen returned to the depths of the inscriptions to prepare for seclusion. Emmanuel also concealed her figure. In her mind, the wings of the rock were undulating, and rays of divine light covered the sky. It was rumored that there was only a broken visualization technique in the Black Bow Celestial clan. It only had 50% of the Taoist rhythm, and only the clan leader could cultivate it. Emmanuel only felt dizzy today. The visualization technique that Long Chen gave her was actually a divine bird totem that was born from chaos. If she could successfully comprehend this totem, with the arrows in her hands, she would be able to fight against those above her level. If she reached the cultivation of an emperor in the future, she could even make the Black Bow Celestial clan a top force in the Nine Treasures realm. The inscriptions flickered, and rays of black light and divine light intersected at the place where Long Chen was. In the blink of an eye, it turned into nothingness, as if the entire mountain had calmed down. The inscriptions of the array had completely covered Long Chen's traces. But Emmanuel looked at Long Chen in a daze. He clearly felt an opportunity to be crowned, and this feeling was no different from what he felt a few days ago. Naturally, he would not forget. Could it be that he has not been crowned? How is this possible? If he is not an emperor, how could he crown me? Could it be that this person did not need to be an emperor to be crowned in the emperor realm? Emmanuel was shocked. At this moment, there was only Long Chen in the inscriptions of the array. The crowned person must be Long Chen. But according to the indestructible rules of the ancient saint divine world, without the crowning of an emperor, one would never be able to step into the ranks of an emperor. He must have been seriously injured, and his cultivation fell from the Emperor realm. Therefore, he could reconstruct the Sea of Reincarnation and crown himself. Emma thought for a moment and shook her head fiercely. She looked at Long Chen with more respect. Now, in her heart, Long Chen was simply an opportunity given to her by the heavens. In the inscriptions of the array, it seemed calm, but in fact, it was turbulent. There seemed to be thousands of divine rivers surging inside the entire mountain, and countless Taoist rules were evolving. It was magnificent and brilliant. Long Chen sat cross-legged, and his entire body was bathed in the light, as if the gods and Buddhas were about to be born. His entire being fell silent, but his hands began to move involuntarily. The voice of the Emperor's remnant soul said, "I will first plant the seed of coronation for you. Try to consume the 7-flower godly herb." After saying that, the coronation phenomenon around him dissipated with a loud bang, but Long Chen's body was still shrouded in divine light. The 2 stalks of 7-flowered divine herbs were separated at a speed visible to the naked eye. The countless impurities within them were directly removed. It was as if Long Chen's hands possessed a tempering method. Long Chen murmured, "Once I consume these 2 7-flowered godly herbs, I'll be able to attempt the coronation." The 2 7-flowered divine herbs were born from beast spirits, so they had the same effect as origin souls. Long Chen's chest and abdomen bulged. His mouth and nose were like a giant whale sucking in water, swallowing the light of the divine medicine. On the other side, in the Ruoshui city, nearly 20 experts flew into the sky, and the leader was Shui Tianmu. Every single one of them was at the pinnacle of the Emperor realm, and they all had crowned seas of reincarnation behind them. Shui Tianmu walked at the front. His face was filled with murderous intent. Under his lead, the 20 of them went around Zhan Lanyue's stronghold, and their destination was the place where Long Chen was going to crown Mo Manue. After a few days, Shui Tianmu brought the 20 of them here. Although Long Chen and Mo Manue had already left, Shui Tianmu casually shot out a few rays of divine light, and streaks of golden light appeared in the sky. Shui Tianmu saw this and sneered, "Find Long Chen and kill him, but leave his divine soul alive. I want to personally torture him until he begs me to kill him." Everyone nodded their heads, but they could not help but feel a chill down their spines. Shui Tianmu hated Long Chen to the core. The streaks of golden light were like a compass, pointing to Long Chen's location. Shui Tianmu and the rest quickly found where Long Chen and Mo Manue were. "They are in this mountain range. If we succeed, I will have to thank Zhan soon." "Ha ha!" Shui Tianmu laughed out loud, as if he could already see Long Chen falling into his hands. More than 20 people flew out, intending to enter the mountain range, and rush to where Long Chen was. The streaks of golden light were definitely some kind of tracking method, and they were left behind when Long Chen was crowning Mo Manue. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Streaks of black flaming arrows pierced through the sky, and they sounded like the cries of black flaming divine birds. The 20 of them, including Shui Tianmu, stopped in their track. There were more than 20 arrows in the sky. Swoosh. The 20 of them were shocked, and they could feel the killing intent from the arrows. They quickly blocked the arrows. Even so, 2 great perfection emperors with only 1 sea of reincarnation were killed, and their bodies were pierced through in an instant. Black Bao celestial race. Shui Tianmu and the rest stared at the mountain peak in the distance. The mountain peak was 30,000 miles away from them, but the arrows arrived in an instant. The power of the arrows was extremely terrifying, causing them to be extremely shocked. Only the Black Bao celestial race could have such powerful arrows in the 9 treasures realm. How did this person suddenly become so powerful? Although the distance here gives him a unique advantage, isn't the power of his arrows too terrifying? An old man turned pale with fright. Shui Tianmu frowned and looked at Mo Manue. He was crowned successfully, and I can even feel a strong totem power. With the unique attacking method of the Black Bow celestial race, it is not difficult for him to have such combat power at the peak of the Emperor realm. Totem power? Everyone looked at each other. No one expected Mo Manuel to have undergone such a drastic change in such a short period of time. Split up and rush in. Once we get close, this person is useless. His long-range attacks are far superior to his peers, and he is weak in close combat. Shui Tianmu saw Mo Manuel's weakness immediately. More than 20 people looked at each other and rushed into the mountain range again. Within the array inscriptions, Long Chen frowned and looked out through the array inscriptions. He said to himself coldly, "They found us so quickly, it seems like the people in the Warring State's stronghold have no intention of stopping them." The places Long Chen searched were all behind the Warring State's stronghold, and Shui Tianmu's speed was enough to explain everything. The Emperor Master said solemnly, "You have the Primal Chaos Golden Code and the Dragon Palace as your foundation, and your divine body is extremely solid. Today, I will crown you with the undying Tao Law." As the Emperor Master finished his words, Long Chen's hands moved faster and faster under his control. Streaks of Taoist rhymes gathered at his fingertips, and countless origin laws converged above his head. Although I have tested it on Mo Manuel once, and I understand 90% of the divine soul of the Emperor realm, how much of the undying Tao Law you can carve will depend on your luck. Chapter 797. The mountain range rose and fell as black smoke curled around it. Mo Manuel stood at the peak of the mountain as he panted heavily. His right hand continued to draw the bow at an almost imperceptible speed. Terrifying arrows almost formed several black ropes as they rushed down from the mountain peak, and then scattered in all directions like meteors. Beneath his feet were lines of totem patterns. There seemed to be some Taoist rhyme circulating. Under the golden light, there was actually a 300-foot rock wing. With a flap of the wing, Mo Manuel's arrows seemed to become more powerful. Luckily, I have the longbow. Otherwise, even with this visualization technique, I would not be able to hold so many people back. Mo Manuel continued to attack as he laughed bitterly. This longbow allowed him to unleash the full power of the Great Circle of the Martial Emperor realm when he was at level 8. Now that he was crowned and regained his Great Circle of the Martial Emperor realm, as long as he stood in an ideal position, he would be invincible. However, there were more than 20 pinnacle martial emperors in front of him. They were all crowned experts. Even though he was in the best position, he still felt powerless. Arrows fell one after another, accompanied by black flames. The ground was already full of potholes, as if the ground had been bombarded by meteors. It was as if the ground had been scorched. 2 days had passed, and the people behind Shui Tianmu had only covered less than 2 kilometers. Many of them had even died. There were even quite a number of people who were slowly retreating as they recalled the rumors about Monarch Mo Gong. He shot 10 arrows from billions of miles away, severely injuring 3 Emperor Realm transit emperors. With 10 arrows, he killed almost 10,000 Emperor Realm experts. The Mo Gong celestial race really had the ability to hold back 10,000 people. Shui Tianmu was standing 6,000 meters away. He took almost 50% of Mo Manuel's arrows, but he was still at the forefront. He stared at Mo Manuel and wanted to grind his teeth. He couldn't believe that the trash he had hung on the city wall a few days ago would have such terrifying combat strength in the blink of an eye. Someone is crowning? Shui Tianmu destroyed the arrows as he continued to move forward. His eyes were like torches as he stared at the place where Long Chen was. He could feel waves of powerful coronation power. At this moment, he was enlightened. The reason why Mo Manuel was guarding this place was to stop them from approaching. Because Long Chen was being crowned. Shui Tianmu's footsteps came to an abrupt halt as he was sent flying back tens of thousands of meters. When the others saw this, they all looked at each other. They didn't know when they had startled Shui Tianmu. Shui Tianmu felt a lingering fear. He secretly thought that he had been blinded by the Long Chen search. The fact that Mo Manwë was crowned in such a short period of time proved that there was an emperor here. He should have discovered this earlier. Now, he could clearly sense the power of the coronation, but he did not feel the pressure of the emperor. But if there was no emperor, who would be able to crown Long Chen? Shui Tianmu was sweating profusely. If there was really an imperial emperor here, at this moment, it was as if they were walking on a tightrope while holding their own head. But after being stunned for a long time, the doubts in his heart grew stronger and stronger. He had experienced the coronation and knew how terrifying the pressure of the emperor would be. But now, he could not sense it at all. After a long while, Shui Tianmu did not move forward. He shouted to the people behind him. The fourth elder should be rushing over from where third granduncle is. Tell him to inform third granduncle that there might be an emperor in the land of source souls. Tell the fourth elder to rush over as soon as possible to prevent Zhan Sun from attacking. The appearance of the coronation power made Shui Tianmu suspicious. He looked at Mo Manwë from afar. Not only had Mo Manwë been crowned, but her combat power had also soared. It also proved that there was an emperor. What a joke. I think the water beast race is just SOSO. What ancient divine river body? Natural vision? I think they are just cowards. A mocking voice came from afar. It sounded like the roar of a huge origin beast. A few water beast race members flew away. Shui Tianmu looked in the direction of the voice. Zhan Sun was wearing scarlet armor inlaid with gold. His entire body was shining with divine light. There were 300-foot scaled beasts under his feet. The scaled beasts had white divine horns on their heads. Their 4 legs were like cauldrons. Their heads were like flood dragons. On their backs were many crowned emperors from the Warring States period. The leader was Zhan Sun. Zhan Sun stepped on the giant beast's head with disdain in his eyes. He stared at Shui Tianmu and said coldly, "What opportunity to be crowned? If there was an emperor here, how could I not know? Just a little trick and you, Shui Tianmu, have been fooled." Shui Tianmu's face turned green. He did not dare to go against Zhan Sun. He could only snort and look at Long Chen. Zhan Sun followed his gaze and frowned. He also felt the coronation opportunity. He waved his hand and several divine lights shot out toward Long Chen. Black Moon Meteor. Divine light shot out and an arrow pierced through the air, shattering the technique that Zhan Sun had unleashed. Zhan Sun frowned. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He looked at Mo Manwë and said coldly, "You dare to stop me?" Zhan Sun grabbed the air with his right hand and a long spear made of divine light appeared in front of everyone. Seeing that Zhan Sun was about to kill Long Chen and Mo Manwë, the Warring States period emperors behind him quickly stood out. "General Zhan Sun, please wait. Mo Manwë is Long Chen's follower. Under the formation patterns here, it must be Long Chen. He is an honored guest personally appointed by Lady Lan Yu. It would be inappropriate for you to kill him. General Zhan Sun, please reconsider. Don't ruin your future. Lady Lan Yu is in seclusion now. If she comes out and knows that you killed her honored guest..." Everyone's forehead was covered in sweat. They could not bear to see Long Chen die. The few of them were saved by Long Chen from the city wall. Now, whether right or wrong, they had to speak up for him. The long spear in Zhan Sun's hand stopped abruptly. He stared fiercely at the few of them and disappeared from the spot. When he appeared again, he was already standing on the mountain peak. Mo Manwë's arrows did not seem to hurt him at all. They were as silent as a cow's hair falling into a swamp. Bang! In just 10 breaths of time, Mo Manwë was struck by a huge force and smashed into the mountain below her feet. The entire mountain crumbled. That Long Chen is an honored guest. This person is indeed from the Black Bao clan. I think he is most likely a spy. Zhan Sun grabbed the air with his right hand and Mo Manwë, who was covered in blood, was held in his hand. At the same time, he transmitted his thoughts to Shui Tianmu. Shui Tianmu saw that Emmanuel was captured and with Zhan Sun in front. He felt much more at ease. Chapter 798. Half of Emmanuel's body was crushed by Zhan Sun's words. She screamed in pain. Under the roar, the warring statespeople stopped one by one, allowing Shui Tianmu to rush towards Long Chen. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. Given the current situation, it was likely that Long Chen would definitely die. Regardless of whether it was Zhan Sun or Shui Tianmu, both of them wanted to kill him. Perhaps only the monarch could save his life. Shui Tianmu rushed towards Long Chen and grabbed at the air with his right hand. Countless water dragons formed in the air and landed on the layers of inscriptions. The mountains where the inscriptions were on let out a thunderous sound. The inscriptions started to crumble. Shui Tianmu's mouth was full of mockery as he attacked madly. Until the coronation power came to a stop. At this moment, he was certain that Long Chen did not have an imperial emperor by his side. This coronation power was fake. Otherwise, how could the emperor-monarch not take action to suppress such an attack? Since you don't want to come out, you can be crushed together with this mountain. Shui Tianmu waved his hand. The 20 peak emperors behind him gathered their divine light and attacked Long Chen. Rumble. Before the attack landed, rays of multicolored light shot up into the sky from the ground. Long Chen flew into the sky and stood on top of the rock. When they saw the brilliance of the wheel sea behind Long Chen, they were shocked beyond words. Everyone subconsciously retreated 10,000 meters. Even Shui Tianmu and Zhan Sun were no exception. Zhan Sun stared at the sea of reincarnation behind Long Chen. His eyes were filled with shock. Long Chen actually succeeded in his coronation. Was there really an emperor here? When the dust settled, everyone's veins were bulging as they stared at the sea of reincarnation behind Long Chen. Zhan Sun was the first to cry out, How is this possible? You have 9 sea of reincarnation. 9 sea of reincarnation. Everyone was stunned. Even someone as powerful as Zhan Lanyue only had 4 sea of reincarnation after her coronation. Even Shui Tianmu only had 6, but everyone knew about his aptitude. Long Chen now had 9 sea of reincarnation. Didn't that mean that his talent was far beyond Shui Tianmu's? Feeling the burning gazes of the crowd, Long Chen's eyes were terrifyingly cold. His heart was burning with rage. If Zhan Sun had not captured Emmanuel and Shui Tianmu had not attacked the inscriptions, forcing the Emperor Lord's remnant soul to end the coronation prematurely, how could there only be 9 sea of reincarnation behind him? The monarch master's remnant soul snorted coldly. The coronation was supposed to be brought forward this time, but it was interrupted again. You settle the matter first, and I'll see if I can crown you a few more times. 9 Dao Sea of Reincarnation is too low, Long Chen nodded. His cold eyes swept over Zhan Sun and finally landed on Shui Tianmu. He said coldly, Today is the 3rd time we've fought, but I don't know if you can last a little longer. Shui Tianmu looked at the sea of reincarnation behind Long Chen. Although his eyes were filled with shock, he was not afraid of Long Chen. However, he was afraid of the Emperor Lord who crowned Long Chen. If there was really an Emperor Lord in the land of Source Soul, if he killed Long Chen, who would be able to protect him? Several people from the Warring States Kingdom heaved a sigh of relief when they saw the situation. Brother Long Chen is after all a guest of our Warring States Kingdom. Now that you have successfully been crowned, there must be a noble behind you. Shui Tianmu, the people of the Battle Kingdom will not argue with you today. Get out of here. The people shouted coldly. Zhan Sun could not help but twitch his eyes. The Battle Kingdom and the Water Beast God race were like fire and water in the land of Source Soul. However, Shui Tianmu was the only one who could kill Long Chen in public. Although he wanted to kill Long Chen, he was afraid of Zhan Lanyue. If Long Chen died in his hands, Jean Lanniue would vent all her anger on him. It would be a very troublesome matter. He knew Jean Lanniue's position in front of Jean Tianquang. Shui Tianmu's face was gloomy. He was actually thinking of retreating. The two words Emperor Lord were like an insurmountable mountain to them. They did not dare to act rashly. Is this the dignity of the water beast god race? Ridiculous! Long Chen sneered. He leaped and blocked Shui Tianmu's path. Long Chen's action shocked the people from the foreside. Even Zhan Sun was stunned. Soon, a playful look appeared on his face. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Long Chen. It seems like this honored guest still wants to fight with your water beast god race. Why don't the two of you fight? The people from the warring state's kingdom looked at Long Chen in shock. No one expected him to fight with Shui Tianmu. Shui Tianmu's cultivation was at the great completion Emperor realm. The strength that Long Chen displayed a few days ago was incomparable. Wasn't he just asking for humiliation? Did he really have an Emperor Lord behind him? Was that why he was so confident? Shui Tianmu stopped and stared at Long Chen. Get out of my way. If it wasn't for the Emperor Lord who crowned you, do you think you can leave here alive? That Emperor Lord hasn't shown himself yet. I'm afraid he doesn't have a good relationship with you. If you dare to stop me, today will be the day you die. Shui Tianmu was furious. In his eyes, Long Chen was crowned and had 3 more C of reincarnation than him. But now, if he wanted to kill Long Chen, it wouldn't be difficult at all. Long Chen heard him and said, "You're really confident." After that, however, Long Chen had already disappeared from where he stood. Today, I want to see what kind of strength you have. Shui Tianmu's chest heaved up and down. He was furious. Long Chen charged head-on and actually used his fist to kill. Shui Tianmu grabbed the air and the water ripples around him were like waves. It was as if layers of sea blue were surging with him as the center. Under the anger, his eyes were full of disdain. Ever since he entered the Emperor realm, he had never been bowed to by someone of the same level. Now that he was at the great completion Emperor realm and had been crowned, he had never lost to anyone below the Emperor Lord. Divine power technique Sea of Waves. Waves of sea blue rippled in the sky, but it bloomed with divine light and instantly fell on Long Chen. Long Chen's fists were like dragons. His body was full of qi and blood, and he actually hit it hard. Rumble. The deafening sound caused everyone's hearts to tremble. Dazzling splendor spread from the place where the two of them fought. The people who came with Zhan Sun were helpless. Originally, he just wanted Shui Tianmu to leave today. But now, he was digging his own grave. No. Look, Shui Tianmu's attack is dissipating. Dissipating? It's broken. Chapter 799. Everyone was stunned. Long Chen's fists had broken Shui Tianmu's powerful attack. At that moment, even Shui Tianmu was shocked. He never thought that Long Chen would be able to disperse his attack so easily. You've just been crowned and your strength has changed so much. Shui Tianmu frowned and said in a deep voice. The first time he met Long Chen, he thought that Long Chen was a small fry that he could kill easily. The second time, on the city wall, Long Chen surprised him. However, if he used some of his strength, he could still kill him easily. However, in this third meeting, Long Chen made him feel like he was in the abyss. The people from the warring state's kingdom looked at each other. The last time they met, Long Chen still needed the power of the Realm Lord's heavenly water pearl to delay Shui Tianmu and save the people on the city wall. At this moment, he could fight Shui Tianmu head-on. Long Chen snorted and stared at Shui Tianmu. I want to see how you are going to kill me today, Azura dancing elephant. If not for Shui Tianmu and Zhan Sun, Long Chen could have been crowned today. How could there be only 9 reincarnation Cs? The more he thought about it, the angrier Long Chen became. An Azura's shadow descended from the sky and enveloped Shui Tianmu in a flash. There were many ghostly shadows on the Azura shadow, but it was bound by thick chains and emitted a terrifying aura. When the totem appeared, Shui Tianmu felt the Azura illusion fluctuating in his eyes, and he felt like he was in a swamp. Rumble. At the same time, Long Chen transformed into a long rainbow. His entire body was instantly covered by the shadows of dragons as he charged toward him. Shui Tianmu's expression changed drastically. He felt that a Genesis beast was about to pounce on him. He grabbed the air with both hands and two god rivers shone brightly. The god rivers turned into spears and rushed towards Long Chen, instantly engulfing Long Chen. Bang! The spears shattered and Long Chen's fists rushed towards him. Shui Tianmu was sent flying hundreds of meters away. Half of his body was crushed. Everyone was dumbstruck. Even Zhan Sun was rooted to the spot. What is his cultivation level? Has he reached the great circle of the Soul Emperor realm? Zhan Sun stared at Long Chen and muttered to himself. The Son of War Star had died because of Long Chen, and Zhan Sun had sent out many messages to have people kill Long Chen. However, according to his information, Long Chen was only at the 3rd level of the Martial Emperor realm. Now that he was crowned with 9 C of reincarnation, his battle prowess was even greater than Shui Tianmu's. There was only one explanation. Long Chen's true cultivation was at least at the 9th level of the Martial Emperor realm. Shui Tianmu stared at Long Chen in horror. Looking at the half of his body that had been blasted apart, his entire face was filled with horror. How is this possible? It's only been a few days. How can your strength be so different? Shui Tianmu's face was as gloomy as water. There was a hint of fear in his eyes. Long Chen slowly walked towards him. Killing intent flashed across his lips. He cultivated the Primal Chaos Golden Codex and used the Dragon Palace as his foundation to guard his divine altar. Now that he had 9 C of reincarnation, he might be afraid of someone like Zhan Sun who had reached the great circle of the Soul Emperor realm long ago. However, facing Shui Tianmu, if he didn't have the strength to crush him, he might as well kill himself. Long Chen walked toward Shui Tianmu step by step. The Sovereign Lord's remnant soul's voice suddenly appeared in his mind. He said in a deep voice, "This person's aptitude is not bad. If he becomes an imperial emperor before you, there will be endless trouble." Long Chen nodded. In the next moment, he appeared next to Shui Tianmu and threw out another punch. Wind rose from the fist, and divine light filled the sky. Shui Tianmu's face was filled with fear. However, a hint of madness flashed across his face. He roared, "Divine river-piercing body!" Long Chen's fist shadows were instantly blocked by the blue rays of light that were almost solid. Countless divine river phantoms condensed around Shui Tianmu and pushed Long Chen away. Then, under everyone's gaze, the divine river phantoms entered Shui Tianmu's body. Long Chen saw this and felt a great sense of danger. Soul Skill, Star Attraction Primal Chaos Mantra. The chaos phantoms behind Long Chen appeared in the void, covering the sky and attracting the stars. In an instant, the sky changed color. The people from the War Kingdom stared at Long Chen in shock and frantically retreated. Only Zhan Sun's expression became uglier and uglier. He stood still and stared at Long Chen. Visualization Technique, Soul Skill Battle Technique. 9 C of Reincarnation. Where did this person come from? Quickly retreat. Otherwise, we'll definitely be affected by it. The stars in the sky moved. Rays of light fell like stars, falling towards Shui Tianmu. The divine river phantoms entered Shui Tianmu's body. The origin energy around him was unprecedentedly dense. Streaks of azure light swept out from all around him. Wherever it passed, countless ravines would appear on the ground. It was incomparably terrifying. Battle Technique, Ancient God River. Under the rays of light, Shui Tianmu's body grew with the wind. In a flash, he became more than 10,000 feet tall. He was like a god, holding a long spear in each hand. Wherever the spear passed, water dragons would appear. The two's attacks collided in an instant. It was as if the Milky Way and the ancient god were fighting. Rumble. Countless earth-shattering sounds came from the ground. With Shui Tianmu as the center, the ground was instantly drowned by countless rays of starlight. Long Chen was also covered by two spear phantoms. He was surrounded by dragons that tore at him from all directions. Seeing this, the people from the War Kingdom couldn't help but gasp. Whether it was Long Chen or Shui Tianmu, the battle strength displayed at this moment was not something an emperor could resist. Perhaps only the subordinates of the great emperors, such as Zhang Sun, could compare. Dust and smoke billowed, and everyone felt their mouths go dry. With their combat strength, they would probably be put in an important position by any imperial emperor. Everyone stared at Long Chen and Shui Tianmu. They wanted to see who would win today. In the distance, a ray of divine light sped over. The person's feet suddenly stopped. Seeing the divine light, his expression changed drastically. The white jade fish in his right hand was suddenly crushed. Then, he disappeared on the spot. The smoke and dust dispersed. Long Chen's mouth was also bleeding. He frowned and looked at Shui Tianmu. Shui Tianmu, who was originally 10,000 feet tall, was now shattered inch by inch. His chest and abdomen were full of terrible wounds. Shui Tianmu's origin energy was in chaos. His injuries had reached a shocking level. Long Chen's eyes suddenly turned cold. Shui Tianmu must die today. He moved his body and was about to rush out again to kill Shui Tianmu. Stop! Just as Long Chen was about to attack, he saw a ripple condensing in front of Shui Tianmu. An elder from the Water Beast clan began to condense at a speed visible to the naked eye. A blue divine light condensed in his right hand and was about to blast Long Chen away. Chapter 800. Ancient Holy Dragon God Transformation. As soon as the battle technique was used, Long Chen's right arm suddenly released a dazzling brilliance. A huge dragon ferociously charged towards Shui Tianmu. Wherever the giant dragon passed, Shui Tianmu's body was crushed into powder before it even touched him. Beside him, the old man who had just arrived by using a secret technique was shocked and furious. He frantically tried to save Shui Tianmu. Shui Tianmu was horrified. Long Chen's soul skill made him feel fear like never before. The Water Beast God clan was considered one of the most powerful clans in the Nine Treasures realm. Their soul skill was not weak, but it was nothing compared to Long Chen's soul skill. There was only one explanation. Long Chen was not from the Divergent God clan. Shui Tianmu's body was completely shattered and turned into powder. The old man beside him grabbed her spirit in his hand. Only then did he manage to save Shui Tianmu from Long Chen's hands. Long Chen frowned and immediately retreated. Shui Tianmu's soul was not destroyed, but his body was crushed and today's defeat left an indelible shadow in his heart. The old man beside Shui Tianmu was strong. Although he was not an imperial emperor, he was an old monster who had been at the peak of the emperor realm for decades. Rumble. Long Chen did not want to take the risk of killing Shui Tianmu's soul and putting himself in danger. But just as he retreated, Zhang Sun appeared behind him. Lightning rolled on his right hand and turned into a divine light that covered Long Chen and Shui Tianmu. What are you waiting for? Follow me and suppress the Water Beast God clan's elder and Shui Tianmu. Zhang Sun's eyes were filled with killing intent. This time, not only did he want to kill Shui Tianmu and Long Chen, but he also wanted to kill Long Chen. Long Chen was furious. Zhang Sun had caused trouble for him time and time again, and now he was attacking him directly. The warring statespeople looked at each other and were in a dilemma for a while. On one hand, Long Chen had saved them before. On the other hand, Long Chen was Zhang Lanyue's guest elder. Although Zhang Sun said that he wanted to kill Shui Tianmu and Long Chen, He was actually blocking Long Chen's escape route and exposing him to Fourth Elder, who was beside Shui Tianmu. Long Chen's back suffered a blow from Zhan Sun, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. It was as if a mountain had struck his back. Oh no! Long Chen's expression changed drastically. The old man beside Shui Tianmu had a cold expression on his face. You dared to destroy young Master Tianmu's god residence. Today I'll take your life. Fourth Elder rushed towards Long Chen in a flash. The divine rays around his body soared into the sky, and his oppressive might was indescribably terrifying. Although this person was only a great circle great emperor, the two seas of reincarnation behind him surged as if they were real, sprinkling a sky full of azure light. Azura whirling elephant. Buddha all beings. Soul skill battle technique. He punched towards Long Chen, and Long Chen released all of his cultivation to block the attack. He wanted to retreat. Zhan Sun sneered, and unexpectedly, another ray of divine light shot towards Fourth Elder of the Water Beast God race. This attack was not very powerful, but it firmly sealed off Long Chen's path of retreat and held him back. Poochie! Long Chen clenched his teeth, and his eyes were bloodshot. Zhan Sun was a member of the Warring States Kingdom, and now, he really wanted to shed all pretense of cordiality. With one strike, Long Chen's right arm turned into powder, and half of his body sank into the ground. What a strong battle strength! I've been a great emperor for 40 years, and I didn't think that I wouldn't be able to take down a brat like you with an unstable sea of reincarnation. 9 seas of reincarnation, heaven-defying battle strength. If you don't die today, you'll have endless troubles in the future. Fourth Elder of the Water Beast God race looked deeply at Zhan Sun, and he finally understood why Zhan Sun was so bold to help him kill Long Chen. Zhan Sun had spread the news to all the forces that had entered the land of Soul Source to kill Long Chen, and the Fourth Elder of the Water Beast God race naturally knew about it. When the Warring States army saw this, a few of them couldn't help but rush out. These people were the ones that had been hung on the city wall with Mo Manua that day. They didn't rush towards Fourth Elder of the Water Beast God race, but they stopped Zhan Sun and said, General Zhan Sun, please stay your hand. Long Chen is under Miss Lan Yu's command, and he has full authority over us. Your actions are inappropriate. Long Chen is Miss Lan Yu's guest elder. If you don't help him, how can you stop him? This matter. Bang! As soon as the words left his mouth, he was sent flying by Zhan Sun, and the left side of his body was smashed into pieces. Zhan Sun said coldly, Don't spout nonsense. I'm here to kill the Water Beast God race. When did I attack Long Chen? If I wanted to kill him, do you think he would still be alive? Shui Tianmu's divine soul sneered. He stared at Long Chen's divine soul and said coldly, It seems like the one who will die today is still you. Seeing that the Fourth Elder was about to attack again, Long Chen's heart sank to the bottom. The Imperial Lord's remnant soul snorted coldly. He was about to take over Long Chen's body. Although the consequences of such an action were unpredictable, it might save Long Chen's life. Just as the Imperial Lord's remnant soul was about to attack, his aura suddenly disappeared without a trace. Long Chen heard the Imperial Lord's whisper, That girl has broken through her shackles and reached the Imperial Emperor realm. Long Chen's body stiffened. Zhan Lanue? Zhan Lanue really reached the Imperial Emperor realm. Before Long Chen could react, the old man from the Water Beast race, who had been about to kill Long Chen, suddenly stopped. Long Chen's face was instantly replaced by a look of terror. An Imperial Emperor has appeared, young master, run. His face was filled with fear and panic. The jade token in his right hand appeared again. Although there were cracks all over the jade token, it still emitted a final divine light that enveloped the two of them. The divine light enveloped the two of them, and they were about to merge into the void to escape. Don't you think it's a little too late to leave now? A woman's cold voice came from the 9 heavens. At this moment, whether it was Zhan Sun or the others from the Battle Kingdom, they were all stunned. That was Zhan Lanyue's voice. Imperial Emperor Zhan Kuang's daughter, Zhan Lanyue, had also reached the Imperial Emperor realm. An Imperial Emperor could control 100,000 Imperial Realm cultivators. As Zhan Lanyue reached the Imperial Emperor realm, the strength of the Battle Kingdom was no longer the same as before. Young Master, run, there is something I have found for you in here, it can help you reach the Imperial Emperor realm. The fourth elder of the water beast god race's face was distorted. With a wave of his hand, rays of blood-red light enveloped Shui Tianmu's divine soul. At the same time, he also passed the storage ring on his hand to Shui Tianmu and then pushed Shui Tianmu into the void. Shui Tianmu's divine soul entered the void, but his eyes were fixed on Long Chen and he said, "When I become an imperial emperor in the future, I will use your blood as a sacrifice." A whoosh! As soon as Shui Tianmu disappeared, an invisible force enveloped the fourth elder. Chapter 801. The fourth elder of the water beast god race sacrificed his life to send Shui Tianmu away. Long Chen stood in front of the crowd in shock. Such a powerful peak monarch realm expert was reduced to dust in an instant. Was this the power of an imperial emperor? Zhan Sun's face turned green as he glared at Long Chen. However, he did not dare to make a move now. Zhan Lanyue had broken through to the Imperial Emperor realm and was able to crush the fourth elder of the water beast god race into dust. Everyone stood still and in just a few breaths, a ray of snow-white light appeared in the sky. Under the blood-red light, life force and origin energy surged like the ocean. Zhan Lanyue was clad in battle armor. She looked elegant and graceful. Her beautiful eyes were like a bottomless abyss that no one dared to look at. When Zhan Lanyue appeared, everyone felt as if there were hundreds of mountains floating around them. They all knelt down on one knee with a respectful expression. Even Zhan Sun lowered his head. Only Long Chen looked up at Zhan Lanyue. This was not because Long Chen could withstand the Imperial Emperor's aura. It was because Zhan Lanyue had purposely blocked the aura from him. Long Chen looked at Zhan Lanyue with a smile on his face. His body that was blasted apart was slowly recovering. If Zhan Lanyue did not break through, the result of today's battle would be unimaginable. Zhan Sun was the first to speak. Congratulations to Lady Lanyue for breaking through to the Imperial Emperor realm. Imperial Emperor Zhan Kuang would be overjoyed if he knew, humph. After the compliment, Zhan Lanyue replied him with a cold snort. Bang bang. Cracking sounds rang out continuously. Zhan Sun's entire body was suddenly pressed to the ground, and his bones began to shatter. Zhan Lanyue said coldly, "As a member of the Battle Kingdom, why didn't you help Long Chen when he was in trouble? Hurry up and apologize to Long Chen or I will take your life today." Zhan Lanyue's words made everyone from the Battle Kingdom look at each other in dismay. No one expected Zhan Lanyue to value Long Chen so much. After all, Zhan Sun was one of the 9 Imperial Emperors under Imperial Emperor Zhan Kuang, while Long Chen was just a guest. Zhan Sun could feel everyone's gaze on him. After hearing Zhan Lanyue's words, he felt an unprecedented humiliation. The pressure on his body was like a tidal wave, and his entire body was almost sunk into the soil. Zhan Lanyue wanted him to lose face. He gritted his teeth and said, "Who is he? Why should I apologize to him? Why is Miss Lanyue like this?" Bang! Just as he finished his sentence, Zhan Lanyue's face darkened. But before she could say anything, Long Chen had already dashed out. At the same time, Long Chen waved his right hand and a streak of divine radiance landed beside Emo Manue, lifting the huge rocks around her. An eye for an eye. Emo Manue was injured by Zhan Sun, and even though her body had recovered, she was still extremely weak. However, he was forcefully swept away by the divine light behind Long Chen and pulled to where Zhan Sun was. "What are you doing? You are courting death." Zhan Sun's eyes were wide open as he stared at Long Chen. The divine radiance on his body was about to rush out, but the next moment, Zhan Lanyue snorted coldly and disappeared without a trace. Mo Manue and Long Chen both looked at Zhan Lanyue subconsciously, and then shifted their gaze back to Zhan Sun, with a sinister smile on their faces. "How dare you?" Zhan Sun stared at Long Chen and Mo Manue. But before he could finish his sentence, he was greeted with a series of punches and kicks. As the fists landed, the divine radiance shot up to the sky, and a fist-sized bloody hole was blasted out of his body. Blood splattered everywhere, and miserable cries could be heard. In the blink of an eye, other than his head, Zhan Sun's entire body had turned into a pool of blood. The dozens of people who followed Zhan Sun were all stunned on the spot, and felt their scalps go numb. No one could believe that Long Chen and Mo Manue dared to attack Zhan Sun. Zhan Sun's body was constantly condensing and then being smashed into pieces. This was simply a cruel punishment. After 4 hours, Long Chen and Mo Manue finally stopped. When Long Chen's fist was about to smash Zhan Sun's head, Zhan Sun's face was filled with fear. If Long Chen smashed his head, his body would disappear completely. "Miss Lanyue, you can't do this to me. I, Zhan Sun, have saved Emperor Zhan Kuang's life." After that, Zhan Lanyue waved her hand, and a divine radiance shot out, stopping Long Chen and pushing him 100 feet away. Zhan Lanyue shook her head and said to Long Chen, "You can vent your anger, but this person cannot be killed." After that, she took a deep look at Zhan Sun. Originally, she only wanted Zhan Sun to admit defeat and apologize to Long Chen, and this matter would be over. But Zhan Sun did not appreciate it at all. She could only let Long Chen vent his anger like this. Just like what Zhan Sun said, if she wanted to kill him, she would need Emperor Zhan Kuang to open his mouth. Zhan Sun breathed heavily, and his body was beginning to condense. Zhan Lanyue descended from the sky and landed in front of Long Chen. Under everyone's gaze, she bowed to Long Chen and said, "I can't thank you enough. Today, you will follow me to the Battle Kingdom, and I will repay your kindness." Long Chen looked at Zhan Lanyue's attitude, and did not avoid her bow, and accepted it graciously. He took a deep look at Zhan Sun, and then followed Zhan Lanyue into the sky. Mo Manue followed closely behind. Everyone from the Battle Kingdom was dumbfounded. No one expected Zhan Lanyue to treat Long Chen with such respect. Although Long Chen's combat strength was exceptional, and his talent was not bad, he was still only in the Emperor realm. Zhan Sun's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. He was severely injured by Long Chen and Mo Manue. Today, he had lost all his face. Zhan Lanyue brought Long Chen and the rest back to the Battle Kingdom, and left Zhan Sun and the rest to continue searching for other divine herbs. When Zhan Lanyue and Long Chen returned to the Battle Kingdom, Mo Manue asked Long Chen for instructions. "I would like to return to the clan, is it possible?" Long Chen nodded and frowned. "Be careful on this trip." Mo Manue cupped her fists, and naturally knew what Long Chen meant. However, he was not worried and replied, "Although Zhan Sun is strong, he doesn't dare to take my life. Now that I have been crowned, if he kills me, he won't be able to live for long." After that, he left. Zhan Lanyue glanced at Long Chen from the corner of her eyes. Her instincts told her that Long Chen was becoming more and more mysterious. Long Chen not only guided him to step into the Emperor realm, now that Mo Manue had been crowned, it must have something to do with him. As an Emperor realm cultivator who came from the Lost People's land, his combat strength was monstrous, and he even had someone who could be crowned as his backer. Chapter 802. Upon hearing Long Chen's words, Zhan Lanyue's anger was quickly replaced by worry. Zhan Sun was one of the 9 great emperors under Imperial Emperor Zhan Kuang. His combat strength was terrifying. Perhaps only Imperial emperors could match him. She said to Long Chen, "Zhan Sun saved my father's life before. But recently, he has become more and more unscrupulous. My father must know what he is doing in the dark. But because of his reputation, my father will not touch him. At least, he will not touch him personally. But if you can kill him with your own strength, I might be able to convince my father. Long Chen nodded. He was satisfied that Jean Lanue did not ask him to kill Jean Sun today. Although he was indebted to Jean Lanue, if he relied on Jean Lanue because of this, how was that different from living off a woman? To kill, he had to do it himself. The two of them chatted as they walked towards the inner part of the Battle Kingdom. Before they had walked more than 1,000 meters, a ray of divine light shot towards them. After the divine light, there were more rays of light following closely behind. Long Chen subconsciously took a few steps back. A majestic pressure came towards him. The newcomers were Zhan Tianquang and a few peak great perfection imperial emperors following behind him. These people's strength was as vast as the ocean. Their vitality was extremely vigorous. None of them were weaker than Zhan Sun. Zhan Tianquang's eyes were fierce and his face was sharp like a knife. He was like a giant beast that had just been released from its cage. He quickly walked towards Jean Lanue. His eyes were filled with love as he laughed. My daughter has really reached the Imperial Emperor realm. With her talent, she might be able to reach the Imperial Emperor realm in a few more decades. Congratulations, Imperial Emperor. Congratulations, Lady Lanue. Like father, like son. Today, the Battle Kingdom has a second Imperial Emperor. When Imperial Emperor Zhan Kuang reaches the Imperial Emperor realm, there will be 3 heroes in one family. Everyone laughed. They were overjoyed. Imperial Emperor Zhan Kuang's brother had the same title as him, Supreme Emperor Zhan Kuang. Everyone knew that Supreme Emperor Zhan Kuang had been nurturing his younger brother. Now that his niece had become an Imperial Emperor, his power would naturally increase by leaps and bounds. Seeing everyone's joy, Zhan Lanue bowed to Zhan Kuang and said, "Father, today, I would like to recommend someone to you. Without him, I would not be able to reach the Imperial Emperor realm." After saying that, she looked at Long Chen gratefully. Although she had become a monarch, she was very clear in her heart. If it weren't for Long Chen helping her achieve atavism and helping her grasp the opportunity to break through in the land of origin souls, who knew how long it would have taken her to take this final step? Back then, Emperor Zhan Kuang had stayed at this step for more than 20 years. Emperor Zhan Kuang and the people behind him all looked at Long Chen in unison. They were all confused. He pondered for a moment. Emperor Zhan Kuang asked Long Chen, "Your cultivation is a little strange." Long Chen thought to himself that Emperor Zhan Kuang was indeed a master who was about to step into the sovereign realm. With just a glance, he could tell that he was hiding his strength. However, if not for the fact that Long Chen had just been crowned and his cultivation had fluctuated greatly, even Emperor Zhan Kuang would not have been able to see through him. "Father, he has been crowned and he has 9 C of reincarnation." Before Long Chen could say anything, Zhan Lanue spoke first. 9 samsara Cs? Everyone was shocked and exclaimed in surprise. "Miss, please don't joke around. I remember that this person was one of the people you brought back from the land of the lost people. How could he be crowned? 9 C of reincarnation. Such talent is comparable to the Earth Source divine tribe. How could it appear in his body? In the entire Battle Kingdom, only Miss has 4 C of reincarnation. If this person has 9 C of reincarnation, he must be from one of the divine tribe." While everyone was discussing, Zhan Lanue gave Long Chen a look, indicating for him to show his C of reincarnation. Long Chen smiled bitterly. Zhan Lanue's action was to keep him in the Battle Kingdom. Once Zhan Tianquang saw Long Chen's potential, he would definitely be willing to take him in and train him. 9 C of reincarnation formed in a flash. Knowing Zhan Lanue's intention, Long Chen did not have any objections. The path of cultivation was too difficult to obtain. If he had the protection of the Battle Kingdom, it might not be a bad thing for him to become an imperial emperor. Buzz. 9C of reincarnation floated up and down. Rays of light flowed and lightning flashed within. Everyone, including Zhan Tianquang, was stunned. No one expected Long Chen to have 9C of reincarnation. Zhan Tianquang's eyes turned sharp as he stared at Long Chen and said, 9C of reincarnation. Which divine tribe are you from? The divine tribe I belong to has long disappeared. I was only lucky enough to awaken the divine tribe's origin. Long Chen did not bother to explain further. Zhan Tianquang was also a smart person. He nodded his head and didn't ask any further. If there was someone to be crowned, it meant that Long Chen must have an imperial emperor behind him. After a moment of silence, Zhan Tianquang said again, "Since you have such potential, you can continue to be a guest of the Battle Kingdom. If you have any cultivation items, you can ask my daughter to find them." My daughter broke through to the Imperial Emperor level. This item is a token of my gratitude. Please do not reject it. When the emperors saw how Zhan Tianquang treated Long Chen, they knew that he wanted to keep Long Chen in the Battle Kingdom. Otherwise, even if Long Chen had 9C of reincarnation, it was too much for an imperial emperor to treat him like this. Especially when everyone saw the item in his hand, they were all extremely shocked. Dragon Snake Divine Medicine. Imperial Emperor, this item is too precious. It is not appropriate to give it away. Long Chen is still weak. If we give it to him, it will bring disaster. The emperors all tried to dissuade Zhan Tianquang. Long Chen looked over curiously. He saw a blood-red stalk of grass in Zhan Tianquang's hand. This stalk of grass was blood-red, as if it was made from fresh blood. It was crystal clear, and its light was restrained. A flower seemed to be spitting out from it. It was the image of a dragon. The Imperial Emperor's remnant soul's voice suddenly sounded in Long Chen's ears. "This item is formed from a drop of my blood. You must obtain it. Although this blood is not my origin blood essence, it is only a drop of blood that I spilled when I died. Although it will not allow you to become an Imperial Emperor, it will allow you to be crowned again. It will bring you great benefits." When Long Chen heard this, he immediately agreed. He was even more in awe of the Imperial Emperor's remnant soul when he was alive. Just a drop of blood could form such a divine item. Chapter 803. Zhan Tianquang's gift made everyone smile bitterly. A few days ago, they followed Zhan Tianquang and spent a lot of effort to obtain this item. Now, it was in Long Chen's hands. Since Zhan Tianquang was so insistent, no one dared to say anything. All of them looked deeply at Long Chen, hoping that he wouldn't disappoint Zhan Tianquang's intentions of recruiting him. Long Chen cupped his fists and thanked Zhan Tianquang as he took the divine dragon herb. With the divine medicine in his hand, the dragon palace in his body actually trembled slightly. Even his blood essence seemed to be boiling. Long Chen came from the corpse world and was formed from the Imperial Lord's blood essence. Suppressing the discomfort all over his body, Long Chen smiled bitterly in his heart. His internal organs could become 11 corpse worlds, and a drop of his blood could become a divine medicine that a sovereign emperor treasured. The position of Imperial Lord was unimaginable. "Thank you, Imperial Lord Zhan Tianquang. Since Long Chen is willing to be a guest, I will fulfill my responsibilities," Long Chen said solemnly. Imperial Lord Zhan Tianquang nodded slightly and led everyone into the main hall. Zhan Lanyue signaled Long Chen to follow behind her. After entering the main hall, Imperial Lord Zhan Tianquang did not let Long Chen leave. There were only 11 people in the main hall. Other than Zhan Lanyue and Zhan Tianquang, the other 8 were all great circle martial emperors. Their strength was as strong as the ocean and was extremely terrifying. These 8 were the great circle martial emperors that were as famous as Zhan Sun. Only Long Chen took Zhan Sun's place. Everyone frowned slightly. Zhan Tianquang ignored them and said, "The water beast god race took the origin soul and publicly broke the contract with Zhan Tianquang. We will not let this matter rest. Zhan Sin, take 10,000 great circle martial emperors from the northwest and enter the Nine Treasures realm. Go straight to the water beast god race's water howl city. Leave no one who is related to the water beast god race alive. Zhan Jiao, take 10,000 great circle martial emperors and attack from the southwest. Burn down the water beast god race's merchant house." Zhan Hong, take orders were given one after another, and the entire hall was filled with killing intent in an instant. Even Long Chen couldn't help but frown. His expression was solemn. This time, with the warring states taking action, the water beast god race will definitely counterattack. The confrontation between the two great powers of the Nine Treasures realm and the Northern Foot realm was extremely likely to be the prelude to a great battle. Everyone knew clearly in their hearts that ever since the Realm Lord's corpse was scattered into the world, the entire ancient sacred divine world was in turmoil. The Nine Treasures realm and Northern Foot realm seemed to be peaceful, but in reality, undercurrents were surging. Zhan Lanyue suddenly said, "Father, I hope to recruit 100,000 monarchs as soon as possible. If not, once the war starts, the rear of the battle kingdom might not be enough." Hearing this, Zhan Tianquang agreed and replied, "These days, the Emperor of Humanity has secretly contacted no less than 5 celestial emperors. He has the intention to attack and kill us. We have to be careful." Long Chen's pupils suddenly shrank. The Emperor of Humanity was the person who controlled the corpse world with the viscera world back then. He was the one who obtained the Emperor's heart back then. His target must be the Nuwa Celestial clan. The destruction of the 11 great corpse worlds, the destruction of all living beings, was still vivid in Long Chen's mind. If it wasn't for the help of Goddess Hua clan's Feng Shi, all of them would have died in the corpse world. He couldn't sit idly by and do nothing about this. Long Chen took a deep breath. He knew that this was a huge matter, and it wasn't something he could participate in right now. He had to step into the Celestial Emperor realm as soon as possible. Otherwise, to an expert of the Emperor of Humanity's level, he would be nothing more than a spark, let alone help the Goddess Hua clan. This meeting lasted for an entire day, and only ended at midnight. Including Long Chen, everyone's expression was extremely solemn. Once this battle started, the two realms managed by the 2 celestial emperors would change drastically. Zhan Lanyue walked to Long Chen's side and said, "Once you reach the peak of the Celestial Emperor realm, stepping into the Celestial Emperor realm will depend on luck and opportunity. If you need any help, just ask. I will tell my father about Zhan Sun's actions. But before you have the strength, don't try to attack Zhan Sun." Long Chen nodded. He knew what Zhan Lanyue meant. Today, Zhan Tianquang let him replace Zhan Sun's position in the main hall. As long as he could kill Zhan Sun with his own strength, not only would Zhan Tianquang not punish him, he might even put him in an important position. After the two parted ways, Long Chen returned to the courtyard where the guest elder was. Long Chen didn't rest. He sat down cross-legged and began to meditate. Ever since he was crowned, his cultivation had increased by several times, and it was fluctuating. Otherwise, many people wouldn't have noticed the difference in his cultivation at first glance. The coronation was truly unimaginable. The 9 Sea of Reincarnation seemed to be connected to the entire ancient saint divine world. Although his cultivation level didn't increase, his combat strength had increased by several fold. The next day, while Long Chen was still meditating, someone knocked on the door. When Long Chen opened the door, he saw the person called Zhan Sin in the main hall yesterday. This person had thick eyebrows, big eyes, big shoulders, and a round waist. His laughter was like thunder. Seeing Long Chen open the door, He strode into the courtyard and said, "Brother Longchen, you are a man of great fortune. That dragon snake divine grass, the few of us managed to hold back an imperial emperor. 2 of us almost died. Now that this thing is in your hands, I advise you to eat it quickly. Otherwise, once you leave the battle kingdom, you will have to worry about your safety." This person spoke casually. If these words had come out of someone else's mouth, Long Chun would definitely be wary of them. However, this person's words didn't seem to imply anything. They came from the bottom of his heart. He really hoped that Long Chen would eat it quickly. Long Chen smiled and said, "Thank you for your reminder, Brother Jean Senator. I won't be leaving the Battle Kingdom anytime soon. May I know why you are here today?" When he heard Long Chen's words, Jean Sun looked at Long Chen with even more envy. He sighed and said, "I don't know what the boss sees in you. I'm here to give you something." Jean Sun waved his right hand and a jade box appeared in front of Long Chen. The jade box was tightly shut, but a wave of scorching heat came from it. On the white jade, there were waves of blazing flames and multicolored light flowing, jumping and throbbing, as well as rumbling sound. "May I know what this is?" Long Chen asked. Jean Sun rolled his eyes at Long Chen and said, "The Blazing Sky Pill, a 3-flower pill. This pill can allow a late-stage Soul Emperor to advance by 2 stages. Although it is only a 3-flower pill, the ingredients required are more valuable than you can imagine." The Blazing Sky Pill. Long Chen was shocked. This was the pill that Zhan Tianquang had promised to give everyone that day. However, the Water Beast clan had taken away the Source Soul, and no one had received the reward. He didn't expect Zhan Tianquang to give it to him. When Zhan Sen saw that Long Chen was stunned, he left the pill behind and pushed the door open to leave. He only left behind a playful laugh and said, "You can cultivate here. Zhan Sun won't be back for a while, but he really pisses me off. When the time comes, you better defeat him or even kill him. Otherwise, all these things will go to waste." Zhan Sen's laughter lingered for a long time. Chapter 804. 3-Flower Pill, Blazing Sky Pill. Long Chen looked at the pill and smiled. As long as he could absorb this pill, he would have a chance to reach the Great Perfection Monarch realm from the 8th level. Initially, he wanted to reach the Great Perfection Monarch realm and let the Monarch Lord's remnant soul crown him. But due to Shui Tianmu and Zhan Sun's pressure, he had to do it earlier. If he could reach the Great Perfection Monarch realm and be crowned again, he might be able to fight Zhan Sun. Long Chen activated the array formations in the courtyard and went into seclusion. The Blazing Sky Pill was swallowed by him. It was as if countless raging flames were rushing through his internal organs as he roared, finally entering his spirit through the Dragon Palace. The crimson-red light was almost solid and it surrounded Long Chen. On the other side, Zhan Tianquang kept on dispatching the Monarch Realm experts, preparing for the war with the Water Beast God race. Although he was only an Imperial Emperor and was slightly weaker than the Water Beast God race's Imperial Emperors, he was not afraid at all, because he could reach the Monarch Realm at any time. Moreover, he had Zhan Quang as his Imperial Emperor. There were tens of thousands of Imperial Emperors under him. The crowd dispersed from the main hall. Each of them had the same expression as the 8 peak Imperial Emperors. In the end, Zhan Tianquang stopped Zhan Lanyue and said with a smile, "I heard that you've been sending divine herbs and pills to Long Chen's courtyard every day, is that true?" Zhan Lanyue did not evade the question and she said, "I owe him a debt of gratitude. Since father wants him to fight Zhan Sun, I have to help him. I hope that for my sake, father, even if he loses, you can at least spare his life." Zhan Tianquang looked at Zhan Lanyue as if he saw his younger self. In the end, he shook his head and sighed. He has 9 C of reincarnation. His battle prowess far surpasses his peers. He might be able to fight Zhan Sun. I've given him a chance, this is his opportunity. But he has to fight for it with his life. 2 months, I'll only give him 2 months. After 2 months, I'll return to Jean soon. Jean Lanue wanted to say something, but she was interrupted by Jean Tianquang. You've become an imperial emperor. Now that the world is chaotic, you need to recruit more imperial emperors. Long Chen was recruited from the land of the lost people. Why don't you make a trip there? Jean Lanue bowed. She knew that this was an order from Jean Tianquang. Jean family members of Jean Tianquang were dissatisfied with Jean Sun's. This was especially true for the direct family members. To them, it was a waste to use so many resources on a guest elder. Many of them Jean Sun's Jean Sun. After Jean Lanue left, Jean Tianquang's lips curled into a smile. He mumbled to himself, "Don't tell me that girl has taken a liking to this brat." However, talent alone is not good enough for my daughter. Just by relying on talent, he has less than a 30% chance of defeating Jean Sun. Master should understand this. An old man in his twilight years appeared beside Jean Tianquang. It's been confirmed. The Emperor of Humanity has joined forces with 5 other imperial emperors. Their target is the Nuwa clan. It seems to be related to the ancient Saint Emperor's inheritance. If it's 10 levels, then it's really boring. Go and tell everyone that the battle between the warring kingdoms will begin in 2 months. Jean Tianquang's eyes narrowed. Pass the era of the Emperor of Humanity to my brother. The ancient Saint Emperor's inheritance is the root of the chaos in the ancient Saint Divine world. The day of the battle. This day was almost forgotten in the warring kingdoms. In the past 10 years, the warring kingdoms had never had a battle. This day was meant to eliminate the useless people in the warring kingdoms. For example, the old imperial guest, the imperial emperors who had no hope of becoming imperial emperors, or those who were weak but held high positions. On this day, the entire warring kingdoms would be in full swing. In fact, the 9 strongest imperial emperors under Imperial Emperor Jean Tianquang were the ones who stood out on the day of the battle. Every day they would have to face hundreds of challenges. Notices were posted on the streets of the warring kingdoms, causing a huge uproar. The day of the battle? Imperial Emperor Jean Tianquang wants to restart the day of the battle? We have a chance to shine. You're only a level 5 Imperial Emperor. Who can you beat? However, I have a foreign centurion that you can try. I heard that he's nearing the end of his lifespan. It's time to change the people in the Elder Hall. They haven't been moved for 10 years. This old man wants to step into the Elder Hall on the day of the battle. Why did Imperial Emperor Jean Tianquang suddenly restart the day of the battle? The Imperial Emperors are the basic strength of a great Imperial Emperor. Although the day of the battle will eliminate the weak, there will be a lot of people left. You haven't heard, right? The day of the battle might have something to do with Jean Sun, the young man who came back with Miss Lan Yu a few days ago. Long Chen had yet to come out of seclusion. The outside world was already in chaos because of the day of the battle. Many people from the warring kingdoms were also in seclusion. They wanted to show off their skills and obtain a position on the day of the battle. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. In the courtyard, Long Chen's body was surrounded by light. His eyes seemed to be filled with divine lightning. This blazing sky pill is indeed extraordinary. It actually allowed me to reach the peak of the Imperial Emperor realm in a month. Long Chen muttered to himself, "Blazing sky pill." When he went to the land of source souls, Imperial Emperor Jean Tianquang said that it could allow Imperial Emperors to rise by 2 levels. Now, it seemed that it was true. Although this pill was only a 3-flower pill, its medicinal effects were shocking. Over the past month, the power of the raging flames was like a surging tsunami, constantly circulating the primal chaos golden codex. It was as if it was cultivating all the time, which was extremely strange. Long Chen sighed. Whether it's the corpse world or the ancient sacred divine world, pills will always be a necessity for cultivation. The Imperial Emperor's remnant soul seemed to have heard his sigh and snorted. "Don't be happy too early. I'll crown you again. This time, no one will disturb you in the warring kingdoms. The more Sea of Reincarnation you have, the harder it will be to reach the Imperial Emperor realm. You better be prepared. If you're lucky, you might be able to reach the Imperial Emperor realm in 1 or 2 years. If you're unlucky, you might be able to drag it on for a few years. If you're unlucky, you might even drag it on for 10 to 20 years. Long Chen's heart skipped a beat. Of course, he understood what the Imperial Emperor's remnant soul meant. With the guidance of the Imperial Emperor's remnant soul, the Primal Chaos Golden Codex and the Dragon Palace, his cultivation speed was naturally fast. However, he was only in the Imperial Emperor realm. In the ancient sacred divine world, Imperial Emperors were just soldiers under the Imperial Emperor. Jean Lanue's breakthrough to the Imperial Emperor realm made him subconsciously think that it wouldn't be too difficult. Chapter 805. The Sea of Reincarnation was a product of the ancient Saint Divine World's undying laws. To be precise, it was the order set by the ancient Saint Divine Emperor. To become an Imperial Emperor, one had to be crowned. The Sea of Reincarnation was the symbol of a successful crowning. Every Sea of Reincarnation could increase a person's battle prowess by several folds. If everyone's God residence was an ocean of God energy, then the Sea of Reincarnation was the divine ocean formed by the heaven and earth's origin energy. Anyone who was crowned would be recognized by the ancient Saint Divine World. Long Chen had 9 seas of reincarnation behind him. Hence, there were few who could match him in the same realm. Even though Shui Tianmu was talented and entered the great circle of the Emperor realm a few days ago, his battle prowess could not be compared to Long Chen. Only people like Zhan Sun could be Long Chen's greatest enemy. These people were all talented and had great battle prowess. However, it was just as the Divine Emperor said. They were all trapped outside the door of the Imperial Emperor's position and could not enter. 10 years or even dozens of years of accumulation had made them almost unrivaled in the Emperor realm. The Divine Emperor's soul looked at the dragon snake divine herb in Long Chen's hand that was gradually turning into an ordinary weed. He said indifferently, "According to your cultivation technique and your current talent, you should be able to reach 18 more seas of reincarnation. From what I know, there was an extreme person who was crowned with 4 or 9 seas of reincarnation. However, he never broke through to the Imperial Emperor realm. At that time, I paid special attention to this person. If he could become an Imperial Emperor with 36 seas of reincarnation, his future would be limitless." Long Chen was speechless. Even Zhan Lanue and Shui Tianmu only had 4 to 6 seas of reincarnation. 36 seas of reincarnation. How terrifying was this person? This person could probably fight against an Imperial Emperor as an emperor. Shaking his head, Long Chen's mind was already clear. The Divine Emperor's soul controlled his hands and guided the heaven and earth's origin energy to gather above Long Chen's head. Now, the Divine Emperor's soul was like Long Chen's guide. With his methods, it was not difficult for him to be crowned. However, how many seas of reincarnation could be crowned would depend on Long Chen's talent. The sea of reincarnation started to condense, and a drop of blood appeared between Long Chen's eyebrows. Every time the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul moved, this drop of blood would fade a little. This blood comes from the same source as you. I will use this to carve your sea of reincarnation. The power of your sea of reincarnation will multiply. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul finished speaking and started carving. A sea of reincarnation appeared behind the 9th sea of reincarnation like the light of a firefly. It flickered continuously as if a constellation was about to break through the clouds. After the first day, Long Chen condensed a sea of reincarnation. This sea of reincarnation was actually faintly blood red in color, and there was even a dragon image that didn't dissipate. The second day passed, and Long Chun condensed his second sea of reincarnation. This sea of reincarnation was still blood-red, and it was not much different from the previous one, but it was slightly fainter. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 days had passed. Only 7 days had passed since the battle that Zhang Tianquang had mentioned. Zhang Sun led thousands of emperors back to the War Kingdom. Within the Warring States period, wherever he passed, the onlookers all saluted him. In the land of Source Spirit, after Zhang Lanyue and Long Chun left, almost 10 battles broke out in less than 2 months. In the last few battles, almost 10,000 emperors were involved. More than 10 days ago, everyone heard that the land of Source Spirits was littered with corpses and countless emperors had died unnatural death. The land of Source Spirits had become a place akin to hell. A total of 4 imperial emperors participated in this battle, including the water beast god race. However, no imperial emperor participated in this battle. Under the competition between the various factions, Zhang Sun's return was akin to a triumphant return. "Congratulations, brother Zhang Sun, I heard that you have killed many old fogies." Zhang Hong welcomed him from afar. He had a good relationship with Zhang Sun, and both of them were Zhang Tianquang's 9 emperors. Zhang Sun nodded and said proudly, "Only 1 or 2, but I have gained quite a lot. Let me report to the imperial emperor first." Zhang Hong nodded and patted Zhang Sun's shoulder. He said softly, "You go ahead first, we will meet at the same place in the evening. We have something to discuss." Zhang Sun bowed and left after greeting Zhang Tianquang. Zhang Tianquang stared at the place where Zhang Sun had left, frowning deeply. The elder beside him was silent for a moment before saying, "I received news from the dark net that he has not even handed over a third of what he has obtained." The elder's voice was still cold. Zhang Tianquang shook his head and said, "He once saved my life. If he is only greedy for a few things, I can still tolerate him. I'm afraid his heart is no longer with Zhang Sun, but he has a good relationship with Zhang Hong and 2 or 3 others. If I attack him directly, I'm afraid I will hurt his feelings." The elder naturally knew what Zhang Tianquang meant. These 9 imperial emperors had followed Zhang Tianquang for many years. At this juncture, they could not afford any mishaps. Strength could intimidate others and attract experts, but it could not stabilize people's hearts. The elder replied, "I have been observing Long Chen's place of seclusion over this period of time. There seems to be a divine beast entrenched there, and divine items are being nurtured there. This person has a very deep foundation. He might be able to kill Zhang Sun legitimately and replace him." Zhang Tianquang's frown deepened, but he said, "Haven't you noticed? Zhang Sun has hidden part of his cultivation. He is now truly a half-step imperial emperor. He only needs one last thought or opportunity to step into the imperial emperor realm. I might be the one who harmed Longchen. When the time comes, I will try my best to protect his life." On the other side, Zhang Hong and 2 other peak imperial emperors met with Zhang Sun in a luxurious restaurant. "Zhang Sun, you were not in the Battle Kingdom these days. Miss Lan Yu took good care of Long Chen and gave him many divine herbs. Imperial Emperor Zhang Kuang also seemed to have the intention of supporting him. When you did not return that day, he took your seat and participated in the meeting. This kid has 9 C of reincarnation. He might really be extraordinary. You should be more careful." Everyone advised him and told him everything they knew about Long Chen. Zhang Sun continued to drink. He looked at the singing and dancing in front of him, and a deep killing intent appeared in his eyes. He said, "Imperial Emperor Zhang Kuang may have purposely arranged the day of the battle. However, even if Long Chen is given a few more years, he will not be able to defeat me." Everyone's expression changed when they heard this. They signaled him not to guess Imperial Emperor Zhang Kuang's intentions. His tone was too frivolous, and there was no respect at all. Zhang Sun saw this and laughed coldly, but did not explain. His gaze was fixed on his arm. There was a faint inscription there. The inscription was not hidden, but the others did not seem to see it. It was very strange. He muttered to himself, "So what if he has 9C of reincarnation? The day of the battle will be the day he is buried. When that time comes, I will definitely torture him to vent the hatred in my heart." Chapter 806. After 2 months of preparation, the entire warring state's kingdom was bustling with activity. One battle platform after another was built. The Xian or heavy platform was already covered in dust when it was brought out. This was the platform that the warring state's kingdom had specially built for the day of the battle. There were Tao patterns and formations on it, and it could withstand several attacks from an emperor. It was extremely difficult for ordinary great perfection emperors to destroy it. The battle that had not been held for more than a decade was being held again today. Most people already knew the reason. The Xian or heavy platform was completed. The crowd gathered in the center of the warring state's kingdom. Countless people stood on the 4 peaks and watched. The day of the battle has begun. You can challenge anyone you want today. Anyone who challenges will have to go up on stage. Once you defeat him, you can take his position. If someone in the same realm who has yet to be crowned defeats him, he can even be crowned as an emperor. The climax this time should be Zhan Sun and Long Qin. It's said that Long Qin took Zhan Sun's position and entered the main hall. No wonder there are rumors that the 9 great emperors are likely to change positions on the day of the battle. What a joke! How old is Long Qin just now? So what if he has 9 Cs of reincarnation? It'll be another 8 or 10 years. How many battles did Zhan Sun have to go through to get to where he is today? Every time there are 100 challengers, he has never lost, countless people were discussing. Zhan Sun and Long Qin's names were on everyone's lip. Dong dong. When the clamor reached its peak, the sound of a bell rang out, rippling like water. The battle bell rang, and the battle began. Emperor Zhan Kuang and 9 great emperors, including Zhan Sun, stood at the highest point of the heavenly mountain. Sage Lu challenges the law enforcement hall's Duan Lushu. Zhan Qinghe challenges the clan's elder Zhan Luo. Nobody challenges guest elder Sun Si. Sounds of challenges rang out one after another. Some of the people on the stage were excited, while others were livid. Some even chose to admit defeat. Their names were recorded, and their positions were taken by others. Some people even lost their lives because of these challenges. There were also many great emperors who became elders. Soon after, those who were dissatisfied challenged again. In the blink of an eye, several days had passed since the start of the battle. Emperor Zhan Kuang looked down at the foot of the mountain and said calmly, "Promote that person called Yi Lushan," and in the competition, many people showed unprecedented potential, but it also made the warring states lose many people. Just as Imperial Lord Zhan Kuang finished speaking, Zhan Sun thus stood out. He bowed and said, "This one has followed monarch for many years, once entering the 9 treasures realm, bathed in blood and killed enemies, and even exchanged blows with the likes of monarch, facing life and death. Now that I've heard that someone wants to challenge my position, I'll go up the stage now. I've been through 10 battles and have been challenged by no less than 1,000 people. I've never tasted defeat, and I definitely won't lose today." Emperor Zhan Kuang nodded slightly and said, "Since the battle has started, the 9 of you can accept any challenge. However, try to remind these juniors not to kill." After saying that, the other 8 did not move, but Zhan Sun was the first to jump off the battle platform. His voice was like rolling thunder. "Anyone who dares to fight with me can go up the stage. If you win, you'll have the title of 9 great monarchs and will be treated well by the monarch, leading 10,000 great monarchs." The surroundings suddenly became quiet, and only Zhan Sun's voice echoed. The other battles on the battle platform also stopped. Although the 9 great monarchs had extraordinary statuses and were valued by the monarch, there would definitely be experts who would try to challenge them. After all, with Zhang Sun's status, they would have unprecedented resources and be valued by Emperor Zhang Kuang. This way, their chances of becoming a monarch would be much higher. A monarch had 100,000 great monarchs under him, and a monarch had 10,000 monarchs under him. Great monarchs were like sand in the desert. If they wanted to stand out, how could they not put their lives on the line? After dozens of breaths, finally, an old man slowly walked out from the crowd. The old man said in a low voice, "This old man wants to see if I have the chance to exchange a few blows with Sir Zhang Sun." The old man looked extremely old, but his voice was still full of energy. He was definitely not someone who had one foot in the grave. When the surrounding people saw the old man go up the stage, they all exclaimed. This person was from the Warring States branch, and was the second elder of the enforcement hall. His cultivation had already reached the great circle of the Emperor realm 20 years ago. In order to find an opportunity to break through to the monarch realm, he had traveled to various secret places. In the end, he had lost almost half of his vitality. A few years ago, he had returned to the clan disheartened, and no longer had the heart to become a monarch. Now, he was challenging Zhang Sun just to be by Emperor Zhang Kuang's side, and to make a final attempt. Once the opportunity came, perhaps the next monarch would be born in the next moment. The two of them went up the stage, and a gust of wind swept out. Without saying a word, they had already attacked. Divine light shone, and the light rushed down, causing the surrounding heavy ores to start to crack. The young peak stage great monarchs of the younger generation were all shocked. They were both peak stage great monarchs, but their fighting strength was like heaven and earth compared to Zhang Sun and the second elder. This is the accumulation of time. Whether it's Zhang Sun or the second elder, I'm afraid we'll all die in a single blow. Zhang Sun is even more terrifying. He has followed Emperor Zhang Kuang for many years, and whether it's his sacred arts or soul skills, he's almost perfected. Only people like the second elder can fight for one of the 9 great monarchs. What about that Long Chen? His enmity with Zhang Sun isn't small. Rumor has it that he's the one to replace Zhang Sun, and he has 9 Cs of reincarnation. 9 Cs of reincarnation. I'll give you 9 Cs of reincarnation. Do you dare to go up the stage now? The stage was dazzling, and the sound of rumbling continued. Emperor Zhang Kuang stood at the peak, his brows slightly furrowed. The elder beside him had disappeared without a trace. An hour later, the second elder of law enforcement stepped down from the stage, his face full of shock. Zhang Sun's face was full of disdain, and he still stood on the stage. "Let me try. Please go easy on me, Your Excellency Zhang Sun." Next was a middle-aged man. He was also a peak stage great monarch, and was also a famous figure. One battle after another, and it went on until the morning of the 3rd day. Outside Long Chen's courtyard, the elder who followed Emperor Zhang Kuang had been waiting for a long time. When he saw that the inscriptions in Long Chen's courtyard had finally disappeared, he flashed in. When he saw Long Chen, he was stunned. Long Chen was sitting cross-legged on the bed. He slowly opened his eyes, and his entire body exuded an ethereal aura. Chapter 807. On the morning of the 3rd day, Zhang Sun had already defeated close to 30 peak martial emperors. These 30 people were definitely not ordinary peak martial emperors. Each of them had been peak martial emperors for at least 10 years. Their cultivation was many times stronger than those of the same level. Even the other 8 martial emperors below Emperor Zhang Kuang were shocked. Zhang Sun's battle strength had increased significantly. More than 30 people were basically crushed by him. Only 1 or 2 could really buy him some time. Zhang Hong and the other 2 martial emperors looked at each other playfully. They realized that their worry for Zhang Sun was unnecessary. With Zhan Sun's current battle strength, no one could defeat him except for Emperor Realm experts. At least, Long Chen could not win. On the other side, Long Chen stood in front of the bed in the courtyard. He was stopped by the old man. Long Chen replied, "Senior, you don't have to do this. Whether or not there is a day of battle, Zhan Sun and I are already irreconcilable. When Zhan Sun returns this time, he will definitely find an excuse to kill me. Then today I will settle this with him." Hearing Long Chen's reply, the old man frowned and couldn't help but shake his head. Originally, the Emperor also wanted you to compete with Zhan Sun on the day of the battle, but now it seems that you have no hope of winning at all. Zhan Sun's cultivation is already at the half-step Emperor realm. Not only that, he seems to want to use your life to break through the last half-step. Long Chen's eyes narrowed. He knew what the old man meant. Although Zhan Tianquang wanted him to fight with Zhan Sun, he still wanted to save his life. But now, if Zhan Sun attacked, Long Chen would definitely die. He stepped on my corpse to enter the Emperor realm. It seems like he hates me a lot. Long Chen laughed coldly. After he finished speaking, he strode out of the courtyard. The old man was about to reach out and stop him when he saw Long Chen look back. For some reason, he was stunned. Long Chen stopped and said in a low voice, "Senior, don't worry. Although he is at the half-step Emperor realm, he has not entered the Emperor realm. I have the strength to fight him today." When the old man came back to his senses, Long Chen had already disappeared without a trace. His eyes were filled with shock. Long Chen's gaze just now actually made him feel as if his life was in the hands of someone else. He had only felt such pressure from a monarch before. However, he clearly knew that Long Chen had not reached the Imperial Emperor realm. On the battle stage, where the final battle took place, as soon as Long Chen appeared, he saw Zhan Sun slashing down another peak monarch with his saber. The names of Zhan Sun rose and fell. He, who had returned victorious from the land of origin souls, was now being supported by everyone. Long Chen's appearance did not attract anyone's attention. Only Monarch Berserk noticed him immediately. Monarch Berserk's expression turned ugly. In his opinion, the battle between Long Chen and Zhan Sun was meaningless. This would only be a slaughter. With Long Chen's arrival, the old man returned to stand behind Monarch Berserk. Monarch Berserk frowned and transmitted his voice. "What's going on? Why didn't you stop him?" The old man smiled bitterly and shook his head. "I couldn't stop him." "Couldn't stop him?" Monarch Berserk was stunned by the old man's words. This old man had followed him for many years. Although his cultivation was not comparable to Zhan Sun and the other 9 great emperors, he was definitely a first-rate great perfection emperor. This kid seems to have undergone tremendous changes in the past 2 months of seclusion. His cultivation has improved by quite a bit. The old man transmitted his voice. Monarch Berserk could not help but shake his head slightly. So what if he improved by leaps and bounds in the past 2 months? Long Chen could only reach the great perfection Emperor realm at most. However, someone who had just reached the great perfection Emperor realm could not possibly defeat Zhan Sun. "Brother Long Chen, you're here. I heard that you've been in seclusion for the past few days. You must be preparing for the day of the battle. Why are you still standing behind?" Zhan Hong suddenly stood up and called out to Long Chen from afar. Although his tone was polite, the meaning behind his words could not be more obvious. Zhan Hong and Zhan Sun were good friends. The two of them had even gone through life and death situations together. Naturally, he wanted to make Long Chen unable to retreat. Now, anyone with eyes could see that Zhan Sun's strength was not something a great perfection Emperor realm cultivator could handle. After Zhan Hong's words, countless eyes turned towards Long Chen. Many of them had never seen Long Chen before. They had only heard rumors about him and Zhan Sun. Of course, the most common rumor was that Zhan Zixing had drugged Zhan Lanyue's servant in his courtyard. It was because of this that Jean Lannoy killed him. This incident caused Jean Sun to lose face. However, everyone agreed that Jean Zixing deserved it. The second rumor was that Long Chen was the person who would replace Jean Sun. This is the person who will replace Jean Sun? The rumors are true. This guy is really so young. What has he been doing in seclusion for the past 2 months? Did he just reach the Great Perfection Emperor realm? Great Perfection Emperor realm. For his age, he's considered very talented. He's not much different from Miss Lannoy. However, if he wants to fight Jean Sun, it's tantamount to suicide. In the past few days, which of those who challenged Jean Sun didn't reach the Great Perfection Emperor realm for at least 10 years? Potential doesn't equate to combat strength. If I were him, I would apologize. The sound of discussion was endless. Everyone looked at Long Chen with amusement. Jean Sun's eyes fell on him immediately. His eyes couldn't help but reveal a murderous intent. He looked at Long Chen from afar and said in a low voice, "It's been a long time." After that, Long Chen actually walked slowly towards the stage under everyone's watchful eyes. The surrounding people subconsciously opened up a path for him. Everyone was whispering to each other. He's really going to fight Jean Sun. Does this guy want to die? He's overestimating himself. If he had come earlier, he would have known fear after seeing how the others were defeated a few days ago. With the hatred between him and Jean Sun, he definitely won't let him live today. As the crowd discussed, Long Chen walked onto the stage. Zhang Tianquang frowned. He knew that spilt water couldn't be undone today. On the stage, Long Chen stood 100 meters away from Jean Sun. He said indifferently, "Last time, you used the Water Beast God Clan to kill me. Now, you want to kill me personally to enter the Great Perfection Emperor realm. Unfortunately, you will die in my hands today." Uproar. When Long Chen said this, the crowd was in an uproar. It was as if they had heard an unprecedented joke. Even Jean Sun, who was standing in front of him, couldn't help but throw his head back and laugh. He said, "You really think 9C of reincarnation can save your life? If I give you another 10 years, maybe you can fight me. However, no matter what, you will die on this stage today." The words of the two were like fire and water. Chapter 808. Thick killing intent spread in all directions. At this moment, everyone could see that only one of Long Chen and Jean Sun could survive. Just like what Long Chen said, he might be Jean Sun's opportunity. If Jean Sun could kill him, he might be able to enter the Imperial Emperor realm for the first time. The two of them stood on the battle stage, ready to fight at any moment. Hold on! A divine rainbow broke through the sky. Jean Lannoy flew across the sky like a star and landed on the main peak. Jean Lannoy's robe spread out, her beautiful face was filled with determination. Even though her robe was exposed, it could not hide her impressive figure. After entering the Imperial Emperor realm, she made countless men feel ashamed of their inferiority. Jean Lannoy's sudden appearance caused Jean Sun's face to turn gloomy. He said coldly, "Looks like you're going to hide behind a woman's skirt again." Long Chen did not say anything. Jean Lannoy snorted and replied, "Jean Zixing was killed by me. If you want to take revenge, I'll suppress my cultivation and fight with you." There were more than 100,000 people in the Battle Kingdom, but those who were in the Battle Kingdom were watching the battle through various channels. Jean Lannoy's protection of Long Chen made everyone look at each other with jealousy. To them, Jean Lannoy was a woman that they could only watch from afar. Since when did they see her protecting a man like this? Emperor Zhang Kuang couldn't help but frown when he heard this. Then, he could only smile bitterly and sigh. Jean Lannoy's return this time was probably because she had already known about the date of the battle and the news of the reopening. Jean Sun's face turned gloomy, but he sneered, "Lady Lannoy, you're wrong. You're an imperial emperor now, who can be your opponent on the battle day? Since Long Chen is a guest elder, I'll challenge him regardless of my status. Jean Lanyue wanted to say something, but Long Chen turned around and looked at her. He cupped his fist and bowed. Thank you for your kindness, Lady Lanyue. I've been waiting for this battle for a long time. After that, before Jean Lanyue could say anything, Long Chen said to Jean Sun, make your move. Let me see how strong a half-step Imperial Emperor is. Miss Lanyue, don't bother about this person anymore. Since he wants to die, why are you stopping him? You don't know what's good for you. Who do you think you are? When you're about to be defeated, don't shamelessly ask for help. If General Jean Sun kills you and becomes the emperor, it will be a blessing for the warring states. Long Chen rejected Jean Lanyue's good intentions and challenged Jean Sun again. This made everyone furious. Everyone's words were filled with jealousy. Jean Lanyue wanted to say something but was stopped by Jean Tianquang. Jean Tianquang said, now that things have come to this, life and death is his own choice. Although Jean Lanyue had broken through to the Imperial Emperor realm, she was nothing compared to Jean Tianquang. She was suppressed and could not leave the main peak. Now was the day of the battle. As the leader of the Battle Kingdom, Jean Tianquang naturally knew what to do. Now that things have come to this, the battle between Long Chen and Jean Sun could no longer be avoided. Jean Sun's body glowed with divine light as he stared at Long Chen. He could not help but laugh. Originally, he wanted to use some tricks to kill Long Chen. Now that the day of the battle had come, it saved him a lot of trouble. Not to mention that he could break through to the Imperial Emperor realm anytime now. Even with his previous cultivation, he did not think that Long Chen would be able to fight against him. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Jean Sun grabbed the air with his right hand and a dark green rainbow appeared. The rainbow was filled with Dao runes. It was not an illusory item but a rattan whip Dharma artifact. The rattan whip whipped towards Long Chen. Streaks of green light turned into the shadow of a whip and rushed towards Long Chen like a giant python. Everyone's expression changed as they felt the elemental energy around them vibrating. With just one move, the surrounding people all felt an incomparably powerful divine power. This aura was far beyond that of an ordinary Great Perfection Emperor. Even if Jean Lanyue had not become an Imperial Emperor, she would not dare to say that she could defeat Jean Sun. Long Chen snorted as his body disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in the air. His body was suddenly surrounded by countless rays of light as his fists shot out like two shooting stars. Rumble. Streaks of blinding light collided with the green rattan whip. Then, there was a deafening tremor in the air, creating invisible waves of air. He actually used his fists to block the attack of a Dharma artifact and a Dharma artifact. This Long Chen is courting death. General Jean Sun has been accumulating divine energy for many years. He has just entered the Great Perfection Emperor realm a few days ago and he dares to block it. Voices of shock and confusion could be heard. Everyone was shocked by Long Chen's counterattack. But the moment they finished speaking, they were all stunned. Their eyes were wide open, and they forgot to close their mouth. Even Jean Tianquang and the others on the heavenly peak jumped up and stared at the stage. The light dispersed. Long Chen actually used his fists to block Jean Sun's attack. He retreated in one strike. Jean Sun was also stunned as he stared at Long Chen. He never thought that Long Chen would block his attack in such a way. Jean Lanyue stared at Long Chen with her beautiful eyes. Her eyes were filled with shock. How can this be? Didn't he just enter the Great Perfection Emperor realm after 2 days of seclusion? This person definitely didn't just enter the Great Perfection Emperor realm. He hid his cultivation level and was at the 3rd level of the Great Perfection Emperor realm. Now, he is at the 6th level of the Great Perfection Emperor realm. Impossible. If he was at the land of source spirits, Shui Tianmu would have died a long time ago. How can a mere 9C of reincarnation be so terrifying? This is too scary. Countless voices could be heard. Long Chen was actually evenly matched with Zhan Sun in a single move, causing everyone to be extremely curious about his cultivation. In fact, even Zhan Tianquang was curious about Long Chen's strength. Only Zhan Lanwei and Zhan Sun knew that Long Chen's cultivation level was only at the late stage of the Great Perfection Emperor realm when he returned. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been nearly killed by the water beast god race's elder. When Zhan Sun heard the discussions about Long Chen, he put away his shock and let out a long sigh. He stared at Long Chen with a hint of seriousness in his eyes. It was as if he was a completely different person from his previous contempt. He said coldly, "I didn't expect a 9C of reincarnation to have such strength after entering the Great Perfection Emperor realm. This is beyond my imagination. However, you are still too inexperienced." The people around couldn't help but look at him. Chapter 809. Zhan Sun had only exchanged a single blow with Long Chen, but it had completely changed his opinion of Long Chen. The crowd, who had thought that there was no suspense in this battle, widened their eyes. Long Chen's attack just now was seriously too shocking. If Long Chen really only broke through to the Great Perfection Emperor realm in the past 2 months, then his talent is truly heaven-defying. He can actually fight Zhan Sun with pure cultivation strength. Zhan Sun, one of the 9 great emperors, couldn't help but say. When he said this, Zhan Hong, who was not far away, immediately snorted and said, "This person has 9C of reincarnation. It's not a big deal that his cultivation strength is terrifying. But Zhan Sun has been fighting for decades. Isn't killing him like killing a chicken?" Everyone around nodded. Although Long Chen's battle strength was strong, the chances of him winning this battle were not high. Zhan Sun snorted and said, "I don't think so. Long Chen's cultivation strength is almost the same as Zhan Sun's. Zhan Sun's decades of accumulation are no longer there. Why can't he win?" The two of them seemed to be at odds with each other. Instead, it was another great emperor who said, "Long Chen's cultivation is so high that he can be said to be extremely talented. If he is given more time, his potential is limitless. It will be a pity if he dies today." When he said this, almost half of the great emperors nodded. Zhan Hong still sneered and said, "This person arrogantly said that he will kill Zhan Sun. Zhan Sun is now a half-step imperial emperor. Perhaps this person is his opportunity. Why would he stop? Everyone, let's see how he will be killed." Zhan Hong's words caused everyone to fall silent. What he said was not wrong. This battle could not be stopped. On the other side, Long Chen and Zhan Sun continued to exchange blows. Zhan Sun's divine abilities were endless, and each of them had reached perfection. The advantages he had accumulated from staying in the Great Perfection Emperor realm for many years were already showing. Long Chen retreated step by step. Rumble. When Long Chen was blasted 100 meters away, everyone shook their heads and thought that Zhan Hong was right. However, only Zhan Sun's expression grew more and more serious. He could clearly feel how terrifying Long Chen was. In just 100 moves, Long Chen had only used 3 types of sacred art. Looks like I'll have to take some time to study the divine powers in the future. Otherwise, I'll be at a disadvantage when I fight with others. Long Chen slowly stood up from the ground and surprisingly, he was not injured at all. The voice of the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul rang out in his mind. He snorted coldly and said, "Why are you wasting time with this person? Just kill him. This person has decades of accumulation of divine abilities. Isn't it a waste of time for you to fight him like this?" Long Chen shook his head and said, "Such an opponent is hard to come by. Let me test his soul techniques." After saying that, Long Chen charged forward again and clashed with Zhan Sun. The entire battle stage rumbled continuously. Even the profound stones used to stabilize the stage were about to shatter. Rays of light flowed. Long Chen and Zhan Sun were like two shooting stars. It was dazzling and eye-catching. Everyone's impression of Long Chen's cultivation had changed completely. No one expected him to be able to fight with Zhan Sun to this extent. Soul technique, burning python tiger. Flames filled the sky. A tiger beast carrying a giant python soared into the sky. The scales on its body were all condensed by divine light. Zhan Sun stood on top of it and looked terrifying. Soul technique, star attraction primal chaos formula. Soul technique against soul technique, battle technique against battle technique. The sky was filled with light and destructive aura. Zhang Tianquang and Zhang Lanyue attacked at the same time, restricting all attacks within 1,000 meters of the battle stage. This was a battle that had never been seen before, even in the many battles 10 years ago. Huff, huff. Everyone stared blankly at the battle stage. In the blink of an eye, the two had fought for a total of 10 hours. 1,000 meters around the battle stage had almost turned into scorched earth. Countless divine lights condensed and did not dissipate. Zhan Sun was panting heavily. His eyes were filled with shock. Everyone's eyes turned towards Long Chen. They saw that Long Chen was still standing 100 meters away from Zhan Sun. Other than his clothes being slightly tattered, there was no change in his expression. Is this guy a monster? After 10 hours of battle, he doesn't seem to feel anything. Zhan Sun's divine power is surging. However, Long Chen is still as calm as ever. What is going on with him? This guy is terrifying. Regardless of whether it is his soul technique, battle technique or visualization technique, they are all terrifying. Zhan Sun can't take him down at all. Everyone had completely changed their opinion. After 10 hours of battle, they knew Long Chen's strength. He was definitely not someone that Zhan Sun could kill. Long Chen stared at Zhan Sun. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and said, "Today's sparring session ends here." As soon as he finished speaking, whether it was Zhan Sun or the spectators, they were all dumbfounded. However, in the next second, Long Chen disappeared from where he stood. A blinding light shot up into the sky and landed on Zhan Sun. You still want to compete in mystique and cultivation strength? Do you really think you can beat me? Zhan Sun said after he died. After he finished speaking, he immediately used all his strength to attack Long Chen. Rumble. No one expected Long Chen to suddenly attack. Blood splattered everywhere. When the loud sound was heard, the sky was already filled with blood. Everyone stared at Zhan Sun, aghast. Half of his body had been blasted to smithereens. His eyes were filled with indescribable fear. How can this be? How can you have such strength? This is definitely not a cultivation that a late-stage Soul Emperor should have. Zhan Sun's body glowed with divine light as he suddenly flew backwards. At this moment, the 9 Soul Emperors, Zhan Tianquang, and the others couldn't help but be stunned. Only Zhan Hong's face was ashen, as if he had lost his soul. He muttered, he actually suppressed his strength. In these 10 hours, he was just practicing with Zhan Sun. How can this be? How old is he? Even someone with 9C of reincarnation shouldn't have such combat strength. Long Chen stared at Zhan Sun, who only had half of his body left. For the first time, his expression changed. He stared at the half of his body that was still alive. His punch was unexpected. With such a sudden increase in combat strength, it was enough to shatter Zhan Sun's body. However, only half of Zhan Sun's body was shattered. This was beyond his expectations. There's something wrong with the Dao pattern on his arm. Don't act rashly. Long Chen was just about to approach when he was stopped by the Soul Emperor's remnant voice. Long Chen frowned. He looked at Zhan Sun's arm but found nothing wrong with it. An emperor carved a unique Dao pattern for him. If he hadn't used the power within it just now, I wouldn't have noticed. the Soul Emperor reminded him. Long Chen nodded and immediately became cautious. Chapter 8:10. Long Chen's sudden display of strength was out of everyone's expectations. However, no one was bothered by the fact that Long Chen did not release his sea of reincarnation. Zhan Sun stared at Long Chen with a ferocious expression. Streaks of dark purple energy started to spread from his arms to his entire body. His aura started to rise at a speed visible to the naked eye. Rumble. The magnetite barrier behind Zhan Sun crumbled to dust. Even the peak-level Great Emperors felt a pressure that came from their souls. Zhan Tianquang and Zhan Lanyue's pupils shrank. Such a terrifying aura was not something a great perfection Great Emperor could possess. Even a half-step Imperial Emperor could not do it. Die! In the next moment, Zhan Sun transformed into a stream of light and charged towards Long Chen. Wherever he passed, countless ripples vibrated, and multicolored light condensed without dissipating. Not good. Zhan Sun has a life-bound Tao pattern that the Emperor left for him. He has completely betrayed the War Kingdom. Zhan Tianquang's face was extremely dark. With a wave of his hand, a long sword whizzed out and fell towards Zhan Sun like a mountain. He wants to kill Long Chen before he escapes. Zhan Lanyue also saw that something was wrong with Zhan Sun. She shouted, "Dodge!" The words of the two monarchs caused everyone to look at each other in dismay. They were all dumbfounded. On the other side, Zhan Sun stared at Long Chen and laughed hysterically. He was not far away from Long Chen. Even Zhan Tianquang and Zhan Lanyue could not stop him. With the natal Tao pattern given to him by the Emperor of Humanity, he could escape after killing Long Chen. Azura dancing elephant. Buddha's living elephant. Long Chen's body seemed to be bound by boundless Tao laws. He could not move an inch and had to use his visualization technique first. Zhan Sun had not only increased his cultivation but also his usage of Tao laws. This attack was infinitely close to an Imperial Emperor's attack. An Azura totem blocked in front of Zhan Sun. However, it melted like molten iron under his divine light. The two visualization techniques were instantly shattered. Zhan Sun bellowed, "What other methods do you have? Use them all." Zhan Tianquang and Zhan Lanyue's attacks followed closely behind Zhan Sun. The two of them had already disappeared from the peak. However, they had never imagined that Zhan Sun would actually have such a trump card. He actually accepted another emperor's natal Tao pattern and completely betrayed the War Kingdom. When everyone saw that even Zhan Tianquang and Zhan Lanyue couldn't stop Long Chen's attack and Long Chen's defense crumbled, they had already given Long Chen a death sentence. Seeing that Zhan Sun's attack was about to reach him, the Emperor Master's remnant soul reminded, "Use the Dragon Palace to suppress the Tao Law and blast open the formation pattern on his hand with the power of your spirit." Long Chen immediately reacted when he heard this. The reason why Zhan Sun was so powerful and could practically ignore his attacks was because he had used the patterns on his arm to communicate with Tao Law. If the Dragon Palace could really suppress the Tao Law, Long Chen was confident that he could kill him instantly. "Block it!" With a loud bellow, the Dragon Palace whizzed out of his body and a majestic palace flashed by. The blinding light made everyone close their eyes subconsciously. Even Zhan Tianquang and Zhan Lanyue stopped in their tracks as they felt a vast and desolate aura engulfing their bodies. Boom, crack, crack. The Tao laws surrounding Zhan Sun's body instantly collapsed. Everyone could clearly sense that his aura was beginning to circulate, and he was recovering his original cultivation. How could this be? Send me away. The light on Zhan Sun's arm flowed rapidly, and he started to escape into the void at a speed visible to the naked eye. His speed was extremely fast, and even Zhan Tianquang and Zhan Lanyue, who were following closely behind, could not stop him. "It's time for you to die." Long Chen was the closest to him. The Dragon Palace flashed by and destroyed the light that was enveloping Zhan Sun. After a loud explosion, Zhan Sun's entire right arm turned into a rain of blood. The power that was suppressing his physical body was instantly destroyed by this vast and ancient aura. The natal Tao pattern on Zhan Sun's arm was destroyed and his face turned to one of extreme fear. Long Chen disappeared from his original spot. When he reappeared on his right arm, the shadow of a true dragon broke through the void and tore Zhan Sun into pieces. All of this happened in an instant. Long Chen and Zhan Sun were less than a few meters apart. When the light dissipated, Zhan Sun's divine soul was left standing on the spot. Half of his divine soul had already escaped into the void, and his physical body was instantly destroyed by the power of space. Zhan Tianquang and Zhan Lanyue looked at the scene in front of them in shock. The suppressive power that Long Chen had displayed earlier was extremely terrifying even for the two of them. However, they did not understand it at all. They only felt a strong light flash by. Zhan Tianquang snorted. When he saw that the natal Tao pattern on Zhan Sun's body had disappeared, he grabbed the air with his right hand. There are probably only a few people who can withstand the pressure of the two of us and even ignore our attacks. Zhan Tianquang's expression was extremely ugly. Zhan Hong and the other peak martial emperors came over in an instant. Their faces were also extremely pale. They all had their own thoughts. They had even guessed who had left behind the natal Tao pattern on Zhan Sun's arm. If Long Chen did not force Zhan Sun to use his trump card today, the Battle Kingdom would have been in a bloodbath. Zhan Sun looked at his divine soul and saw that everyone from the Battle Kingdom was looking at him. His face was filled with fear. He screamed crazily, "Emperor, Emperor, I once saved your life. Please spare my life." Emperor Zhanquang said coldly, "If you only lost to Long Chen, I might have spared your life today. But you have sold the entire Battle Kingdom with this Tao pattern." Was this Tao pattern carved by the Emperor of Humanity? Hearing this, everyone's expression was solemn, as if this matter was already extremely serious. Long Chen frowned. This matter was also related to the Emperor of Humanity. Zhan Sun's divine soul was weak. He smiled bitterly and said, "Why do you have to ask me, Bang?" Before Zhan Sun could finish his sentence, his entire body was crushed by Zhan Tianquang. Zhan Tianquang and Zhan Lanyue looked extremely serious. They turned around and led everyone to the main hall. The 8 great martial emperors followed closely behind. Zhan Sun walked to Long Chen's side and smiled. "You should come with us too. With the combat power that you have displayed today, I'm afraid that even the few of us are no match for you." If Zhan Sun did not have the Tao pattern, Long Chen would have been able to crush him. Even Zhan Sun and the other great martial emperors were shocked by such terrifying combat power. Now, other than acknowledging Long Chen, they were also wary of him. Chapter 8:11. Long Chen became one of the 9 great emperors of the Warring States period and became a hot topic in the Warring States period. A great emperor from the land of the lost people was able to step on Zhan Sun's corpse and rise to such a high position in such a short time. Luckily, Long Chen killed Zhan Sun. Otherwise, the Tao pattern that the Emperor of Humanity left on him would be a huge problem. The Emperor of Humanity and the 5 great emperors are going to attack the Nuwa celestial race. The Warring States period is on their way. He has no intention of passing through. He wants to wipe out the Warring States period together with the Warring States period. Zhan Sun is in such a high position. If he removes the Warring States period's array formation during the battle, blood will flow like a river. The Warring States period was filled with discussions. They were furious at Zhan Sun's actions. On the other side, Long Chen, Zhan Tianquang and the others were having a discussion in the main hall. Everyone was extremely serious. In the land of source spirits, the Warring States period and the Water Beast celestial race were at odds with each other. Now that the Emperor of Humanity was related to Zhan Sun, the Warring States period felt an unprecedented pressure. Lan Yu, go with Long Chen to Sovereign Zhanquang's place and tell him everything. It would be best if you can bring back something that can stabilize the situation. Emperor Zhanquang ordered Zhan Lanyue and Long Chen. Emperor Zhanquang was also feeling uneasy. If it was only the Water Beast celestial race, it would be fine. But if the Emperor of Humanity and the 5 great emperors were to attack together, the Warring States period would not be able to stop them. Zhan Lanyue agreed, but Long Chen rejected Emperor Zhanquang's suggestion. He said in a low voice, "I would like to return to the land of the lost people. Emperor Zhan Lanyue, please go with the others to Sovereign Zhan Sun's place." Zhan Tianquang wanted to say something but was interrupted by Zhan Lanyue. Zhan Lanyue stared at Long Chen and said, "You and I will go to the land of the lost people first, then to the land of the sovereign." When Emperor Zhanquang saw this, he could not help but smile. Without waiting for Long Chen to agree, he said, "Then the 2 of you can set off now." Zhan Lanyue and Long Chen left the main hall first. After some discussion, Zhan Tianquang and the other 8 peak Soul Emperors decided to call back all the Soul Emperors who had attacked the Water Beast race. Long Chen and Zhan Lanyue left the War Kingdom side by side. When the people of the Warring States period saw the 2 of them, they all saluted. They were even more in awe of Long Chen. As soon as the 2 of them left the Battle Kingdom, Zhan Lanyue snorted coldly at Long Chen. Level 6 Monarch Realm, your secret technique of concealing your cultivation level is not bad. Even though I'm an Imperial Emperor, I still can't see through it. Long Chen smiled bitterly and nodded. He replied, "Miss Lan, you wouldn't be planning to exchange a few moves with me again, right?" As soon as he finished speaking, Long Chen was sent flying by a strong gust of wind. He landed on a mountain peak 1,000 meters away. Rumble! What followed was a series of explosions. Zhan Lanyue's lips curled into a smile. She used the might of an Imperial Emperor to send Long Chen flying for tens of thousands of meters before she stopped. When she saw Long Chen's pale face, she laughed out loud. She snorted and said, "Now we're even. You've sent me flying many times before." We're even," Long Chen said awkwardly. Back then, Zhan Lanyue purposely suppressed her cultivation level to level 3 Monarch Realm. However, he hid his cultivation level and used the strength of a level 6 Monarch Realm. He did cause Zhan Lanyue to suffer a lot. Long Chen walked behind Zhan Lanyue. He shook his head and smiled bitterly as he followed closely behind Zhan Lanyue. Although he had defeated Zhan Sun in a crushing manner, he did not have any battle prowess to speak of when facing a monarch. There were a total of 27 Sea of Reincarnation behind him. He was almost invincible against an Imperial Emperor. For example, Zhan Sun's godly force had been accumulating for tens of years. With only 2 Sea of Reincarnation, he was able to defeat many Imperial Emperors of the younger generation. It was a pity that he met Long Chen. A vast ocean of thousands of miles could not compare to the intersection of 27 rivers. The 2 of them traveled one after the other. With Zhan Lanyue leading the way, their speed was much faster than the blue-feathered bird. Even so, it took them a total of 13 days. When he saw the mountain range where the land of the lost people was, Long Chen couldn't help but marvel at the vastness of the ancient Saint Divine world. The blue-feathered bird could travel millions of miles in a day. It might take them more than 20 days to reach the War Kingdom. However, this was only the location of one Imperial Emperor. There were 1,000 Imperial Emperors in the entire North Foot territory. Each Imperial Emperor had 10,000 Imperial Emperors under him. Whether it was the size of the North Foot territory or the number of Imperial Emperors, Long Chen couldn't help but sigh. Just the North Foot territory alone had more than 10 million Imperial Emperors. Even the powerful War Kingdom was just a carp crossing the river. Seeing Long Chun staring at the land of the lost people in a daze, Jean Lanue said faintly, "You should return to the land of the lost people first. At the same time, help me keep an eye out for imperial emperors. I will go to the other 3 lost people's land." Jean Lanue's words pulled Long Chun back from his thought. He nodded and the 2 of them went their separate ways. After staying in the War Kingdom for a long time, Long Chun had a lot more understanding of the land of the lost people. The land of the lost people was really a land abandoned by the entire continent. The imperial emperors here were usually not visited by any forces. Even if they were selected, most of them would become servants like slaves. Of course, most of them were women. However, since the ancient Saint Divine world was in chaos, the land of the lost people had become more prosperous. If the entire ancient Saint Divine world was a huge battlefield, then the imperial emperors would be the soldiers of various forces. More and more people began to ignore the rule of one imperial emperor, having 100,000 imperial emperors. They recruited a large number of imperial emperors as their subordinates in an attempt to increase their strength. Long Chun landed in the outermost village of the land of the lost people. The sound of hawking continued. Selling buns, free if they don't taste good. Good quality beast skin, only spirit stones. 100 Saint Realm female slaves, tender and tender, only 10 source stones. Northwest Village Tower, 1 Emperor Origin energy is enough. It had to be said. Compared to the War Kingdom and other places, the land of the lost people, although chaotic, was the most ordinary place in the corpse world. Walking on the street, Long Chun suddenly stopped after walking less than 10,000 meters. His eyes were full of vigor as he looked around. One by one, the signboards of the restaurants and shops fell into his eyes. After a moment, the corner of his mouth curled into a smile. At the bottom right corner of the signboards of these restaurants, there was the symbol of the Yun family. The village here was still some distance away from the place governed by the eagle-head divine race. Seeing the symbol of the Yun family here was enough to guess that the Yun family had undergone earth-shaking changes in just over a year. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.